Ick, dude. Fuck. Oh. Yes, I am back. I love when dumb motherfuckers in the chat are like, you're not back. Refresh, you fucking idiots. Refresh. It's over. It's over. I lost like probably half the fucking audience now, but there's nothing I can do. Thank God. Shouts out to Twitch for that one, by the way. Thank you, Twitch. You're the fucking best. Thank you for literally in the middle of my commentary, fucking 4 hours and 25 minutes in to my commentary, you just cut it in half. You cut my audience in half. You cut my reach in half. You cut everything in half. You cut the revenue that you generate in half because you can't get a fucking single server to not act out. Okay? Sick. It's awesome. Thank you, Twitch. You're the best. I love having my own motherfucking multi-trillion-dollar conglomerate that owns monopoly market share in both e-commerce and also in the live streaming space, not be able to fucking have enough servers to just handle streaming uninterrupted. I love it. Look at that. Literally cut directly in half. 30,000 people were watching. Now we're back down to 12,000 people watching. That's fucking sick. Thank you. Thank you, Twitch. Hey, but guess what, guys? We got multi-streaming now. We got multi-streaming, you know? Anyway, great.
To make things right at Ford, at the Big Three, and across the auto industry. Together, we are turning the tide for the working class in this country.
It's great. So fucking bummed, dude. Holy shit. I fucking, nothing just kills me. Nothing kills my momentum like that. Just a way for my stream to fucking die completely outside of my control. Like, there's not a single thing I can do about it. It just fucks me. It fucking ruins me, dude. It ruins my mood. It ruins my fucking vibes. Habibi AWS is having an outage, not Twitch. Wait, what do you mean? It says there's no current... Down Detector says there's no outage. Ay. All right, let's watch. The New Yorker wrote about Hasan Minhaj, and he made a fucking video about it.
The news coming out of the Middle East right now feels devastating and hopeless. And I've been asked by a lot of people to give my perspective on what is happening in the region. I've also been asked, wait a second, aren't you a liar? Now, for those of you who don't know, back in September, the New Yorker ran a piece on me called Hasan Minhaj's Emotional Truths, in which a reporter fact-checked my stand-up specials and found some factual inaccuracies that they wanted to ask me about. So I sat down with them to explain my writing process and why I make certain creative choices in my stand-up. Now, when the article came out, it got picked up by almost every single news outlet, all of them basically saying the same thing.
Critics are raising questions about Hasan Minhaj and whether he and other comedians should be more truthful with their materials.
One of Mr. Minhaj's stories is about a white girl he asked to the prom who spurned him on the big day when her parents didn't want pictures taken with a brown boy, except it never happened.
Now, with everything that's happening in the world, I'm aware even talking about this now feels so trivial. But being accused of faking racism is not trivial. It is very serious, and it demands an explanation. So to everyone who read that article, I want to answer the biggest question that's probably on your mind. Is Hasan Minhaj secretly a psycho? Underneath all that pomade, is Hasan Minhaj just a con artist who uses fake racism and Islamophobia to advance his career? Because after reading that article, I would also think that. So I took a beat before responding, because like you, I've been paralyzed by the news coming out of the Middle East. And I've been processing all the criticism that has come my way. And I just want to say,
the fuck?
To anyone who felt betrayed or hurt by my stand-up, I am sorry. I made artistic choices to express myself and drive home larger issues affecting me and my community. And
Bro, there ain't no fucking way
that I let people down.
There ain't no way he made a YouTube apology video being like, yeah, I actually did lie, by the way. That's so weird. Bro, move on. Move on. What are you doing? Move on. Just literally, if he had just been like, fuck the New Yorker, okay? And then immediately been like, here is a 21-minute breakdown, comprehensive breakdown on how Israel has slaughtered Palestinian children, people would forget about what the fuck's going on in his life. Oh my God. Now it looks like he's just being like, hey, I know that things are really fucked up right now. Like there's ethnic cleansing happening, but also here I wanted to make a YouTube apology about how I I lied in my life and my personal experiences to make comedy specials. What the fuck? He kind of exonerates himself,
And the
really?
reason I feel horrible is because I'm not a psycho. But this New Yorker article definitely makes me look like one. It was so needlessly misleading. Not just about my stand-up, but also me as a person. The truth is, racism, FBI surveillance, and threats to my family happened. And I said this on the record. So I'm gonna do the most Hasan Minhaj thing ever. I'm gonna do a deep dive on my own scandal with graphics because there was so much evidence I gave the New Yorker that they ignored that I want to show you. So buckle up because it's about to get tedious. There are 3 stories from that article that I want to address. The anthrax scare.
This guy, dude. Look at how schizophrenic my fucking haters are. Are you just saying that because you've been caught in lies too? Divert some attention? Yeah, dude. It must mean that. I love being a 3-month subscriber and immediately having the least charitable thing that, like, having the least charitable perspective on the person that you've like watched, that you've been following since 2019. You've been following me since 2019, pretty much like a year in, or more than a year in. But like when I first was thinking about becoming a content creator on this platform full time, you've seen every aspect of my career on this platform, and you have waited for the past 4 years to, and throughout that process, not even a single moment did you go, man, this guy is maybe not the piece of shit that I think he is, that other people have told me he is. You know what I mean? 4 years, man. You good? You good? 4 years? Like, that's how uncharitable you are? When I said what I said about Hasan Minhaj, it must mean that I have something to hide too? I wonder why this is his first message in the past 3 years. I wonder what led him to come back in here. Last time he wrote something was 2020. Do you even read this stuff, lol? We want Bernie. Obama, we want Bernie. Do you like Destiny then? I love your shit, man. 2019. Love the content, man. Keep it up. Love the content. How do you go from that to this, dude? How? Over the course of 4 years, how do you become this uncharitable? How did that happen? Because think about it. Like, I'm over here criticizing an entirely different person for what he's doing that comes across as very narcissistic. And this guy goes, oh, he's shitting on this other guy, which must mean like he's got something to hide himself. Like, how can you fucking turn anything and everything I say back on me in the least charitable way possible? It's crazy.
The FBI informant story, but first I want to talk about how and why I was rejected from prom. Now let me first say this. I am 38 years old with a wife and 2 kids. I do not give a shit about prom. But it's a big story from my first stand-up special, and the New Yorker implied that I made it all up and that my race wasn't a factor in my rejection. But it was, and I have the evidence to prove it. So, in Homecoming King, I told a story about how I was supposed to go to prom with a white girl named Bethany Reed. Her real name is not Bethany. I changed it to protect her anonymity. I say that I show up at Bethany's house on prom night, but at the doorstep, her mom tells me they don't want her to go to prom with me because they'll be taking a lot of pictures and they don't want their family back home to see her with a brown boy. Bethany's mom did really say that. It was just a few days before prom. And I created the doorstep scene to drop the audience into the feeling of that moment, which I told the reporter.
Is the doorstep moment true? Like,
No,
did that happen?
No. It happened before. But the emotional truth remains the same. Her mom going, "Hey, sweetie, we take photos and we don't want people to see. We have family back home."
Did she sort of give that as the reason of like, my parents aren't comfortable with going to,
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just destroyed me.
Yeah. Sure. That's understandable.
The reporter said it's understandable, but none of what I explicitly said makes it in the article. This is what...
Okay, never mind. I take it back. He kind of cooked them a little bit. That's kind of fucked. I guess the reporter will say, well, we went back to the lady and she said that that's not something that happened. Okay.
What they wrote instead.
She told me that she turned down Minhaj, who was then a close friend, in person days before the dance. Minhaj acknowledged that this was correct, but he said that the two of them had long carried different understandings of her rejection.
This whole paragraph makes it sound like I got friend-zoned by Bethany, and then I turned into an angry incel, and then faked racism to get back at her. And I think this sentence is the reason why people believe that. He said that the two of them had long carried different understandings of her rejection. This sentence is incredibly misleading and implies the exact opposite of what I meant. Let me explain. Okay. Over a decade after prom, in August of 2014, Bethany and I met at a restaurant called Sarah Betts in New York, and we cleared the air on what her mom said to me at prom. Now, I talk about this in Homecoming King, and I also told the New Yorker about this meetup.
She had an understanding that we were like totally cool. And like I had been carrying something completely different. And I just told her what it meant. Like, it's like, do you understand what it's like being a skinny Muslim Desi brown kid in Davis, California? And, you know, we're always told to put our head down and just take it. And I did. And I carried this water for like years and years.
When the article says we had different understandings, what I clearly meant was that Bethany never knew how much her family being racist had affected me. That's why we had different understandings. Not because Bethany denied this happened. In fact, Bethany basically confirmed in writing that racism was a factor in the prom rejection. In 2015, I sent Bethany an email congratulating her on her wedding to a man of color, saying, I know I told you about sharing the story about us not being able to go to prom together with kids and communities to talk about forgiveness and perseverance. But this ending, you guys getting married, is proof that love conquers all. It's a testament to the way the world truly can be. Wishing you guys the absolute best, and here's to a life filled with gorgeous Zayn Malik mixed-race babies. Yep, I'm aware. I write emails the way Lin-Manuel Miranda talks. I'm not proud of it, but let's stay focused. Bethany then replied saying, I do think love conquers all. And while it might always be challenging, true love is worth the fight. We also had the unique opportunity to showcase both our cultures at the wedding, with a ceremony for each. I think my parents have come a long way too. And what would her parents have to come a long way from? Racism. Again, I don't care about prom. I mean that. And Beth.
Okay. What about the anthrax one, though? Because, like, sure, the people presenting him as an incel is like, I mean, that part was the one that I contested the most, and everybody fucking yelled at me when this was the out of the New York article, the New Yorker article that I read, like, this part that he's defending fairly well is the one part that I contested the most, and people were like, oh, you don't understand, he's actually an incel. Hasan, this feels illegal for me to know. These emails are beyond cringe. This guy seems so self-centered. He's making my stomach turn. I agree, by the way.
Bethany didn't do anything wrong, and I wish her and her family nothing but the best. Her parents have grown. My parents have grown. That's the point of the whole show, and that should be celebrated. Love conquers all. But I do not appreciate the New Yorker implying that I made up racism. My team and I repeatedly try to give them the emails that you just saw.
As early as, you know, I believe fall 2014.
I have these if you want.
Yeah, and then we have email correspondence in 2017, which we can give you.
Okay.
Then I now shift to email correspondence, which she can give you.
I have it. I can send it.
Yeah. So there's all, and happy to give you all these emails.
Sure.
Not only that, we confirmed the emails were sent to the reporter and their fact checker before the article came out. Therefore, they knew my rejection was due to race. I confirmed it on the record and provided corroborating evidence. And yet, they misled readers by excluding all of that and splicing two different quotes together to leave you thinking that I made up a racist incident. Now, the article also...
I don't think you understand how infuriating it is for someone to accuse one of making up racism. Yeah, you're right, man. I definitely don't understand what it's like when someone says you're making up racism. How would I know? What's next? Are you going to be like, you have no idea what it's like when everybody thinks you are a terrorist who loves 9/11 and will regularly keep saying that? What's next? You have no idea what it's like to be clip chimped and then have people fucking yell at you for the thing that you didn't actually say, that you didn't even imply, but people said you were implying? You have no idea what it's like to fucking stream on twitch.tv for 8 to 10 hours a day talking about politics. You would never know what that's like. Is that what you're going to say next? I do know those things, dude.
implies that I...
Yeah. Hasan, you don't understand the kind of racism Hasan has gone through, okay?
humiliated Bethany and got her doxxed with my carelessness. So I want to show you evidence that shows that that isn't true. Back in November of 2015, when Homecoming King was running off Broadway, Bethany came to the show, and this is how the New Yorker reported it.
You don't know what it's like to be named Hasan with one S. You just don't know Hasan.
The woman said that Minhaj had invited her and her husband to an off-Broadway performance. She'd initially interpreted the invitation as an attempt to rekindle an old friendship, but she now believes the move was meant to humiliate her.
I promise it was never my intention to humiliate Beth.
You and Hasan Minhaj are genuinely not the exact same, to be fair. You are white passing. Yes, this is a fact that I bring up almost all the goddamn time. But it is pretty funny to say that to someone like myself in general from wherever the fuck the chat is standing. You know what I mean? I know. The difference between me and Hasan is that everyone knows he's brown. Okay? I am white. That's a big deal. That's a big difference. That gives me a tremendous amount of privilege. Okay, at first, but you know, it's at our respective levels of fame. I would say that it's pretty funny to say you don't know what it's like, because like we both do political commentary and we're both named Hasan. You know what I mean?
Bethany at the show, but this reporting is false. I looked back at our emails and I found out that I didn't invite Bethany to that show. She emailed me out of the blue and told me that she was coming because her friends saw the show and said they loved it. After the show, Bethany also texted me that it was awesome and we kept in touch for years. I included her in the journey with full transparency. I put her in touch with fact checkers from This American Life. I invited her to the Netflix premiere party. I even emailed her to take down a tweet that might reveal her identity. Bethany then responded with a really nice email that ended with her saying, P.S. Thanks for the heads up on the tweet. I deleted the other ones, but this one escaped me. It's shockingly hard to resurface old social media, apparently. Thanks, too, for always protecting me and my family. I don't think I've ever formally thanked you for that, and I do sincerely appreciate it. Even in the Netflix special, I don't use any real photos of Bethany or her family. Those are actors, and their faces are blurred. Maintaining Bethany's anonymity has always been a priority for me.
Goddamn. Okay, he's kind of cooking, dude. I mean, he spent 10 minutes on this when there's like way worse shit in that article, but still, he kind of cooked on this big time.
I would never want her to get doxxed or harassed. And if there were any negative consequences that came your way, Bethany, I am sorry about that. I am not.
I mean, I think this extends beyond like simply fucking silly pitter patter. You know what I mean? It's not like a silly back and forth that got misconstrued. Like, this is like kind of fucked up. I mean, you rarely ever have this level of information on your side when journalists do stuff like this. And journalists do stuff like this. It's often not even, let me tell you something, okay? Oftentimes it's not even the individual reporter's fault. Sometimes an editor can do that. Sometimes an editor can decide to change the direction entirely of an interview because they think it's going to be better because things have changed in the world, or they think it's going to be better because the attitude towards that person has shifted. Straight up. Here's our official statement. Hasan Minhaj confirms in his video that he selectively presents information that embellishes to make a point. Exactly what we reported. Our piece, which includes Minhaj's perspective at length, was carefully reported and fact-checked. It is based on interviews with more than 20 people, including former Patriot Act and Daily Show staffers, members of Minhaj's security team, and people who have been subject to his stand-up work, including your former FBI informant brother Eric and the woman at the center of the prom rejection story. We stand by our story. Yeah, that's kind of fucked up. How can you stand by her story? You wrote the entire thing knowing he actually told you the truth beyond why he was changing parts of the stories to protect people in real life, for example, and he provided receipts. Are you going to do Chappelle's 3 a.m. baby routine next? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. They kind of clip-chimped him pretty fucking hard, especially on this one. Weird that this hit piece on a Muslim brown leftist-ish man came out right after he was getting considered to permanently host The Daily Show. Yeah, I wonder if they, like, cooked his ass completely. I wonder if they, like, destroyed any chances he might have had of hosting The Daily Show.
But I promise I am not needlessly cruel, even though that's what The New Yorker wants you.
Chat it up, though. Listen, I stand on my fucking two legs and say, I told you so, motherfuckers, okay? There were parts of that story that were unimaginable and unhinged, okay? And I still maintain that position, like the anthrax story and shit. But there were parts of that story where I said, this doesn't seem to be the way that the New Yorker is presenting it. And I fucking told you. I told you, motherfuckers, because you didn't want to believe a brown man, okay? You did not want to believe a Muslim man could ever experience racism, okay? A lot of you Karens fucking jumped out And we're like, nope, this is actually and I said it at the time, this is actually a two different perspectives here at play. You have white ladies who have been victimized by incels looking at the story and thinking this guy's a fucking weird, gross incel. What the hell? And then blaming racism. And then you have brown boys who fucking looked at the situation and were like, what do you mean? This happened to me. What the fuck are you talking about? It's not that crazy that these guys are just like ripping him apart. You will never be a brown boy, never be a big boy, never be Japanese. I'm not a brown boy. Okay? I'm not. Hasan equals Hamas. Thanks, man. Thanks, Shawnee boy.
You to believe despite the evidence.
Fucking got him.
I was an open book. I sat down in good faith. They had my testimony in 4 years of correspondence, backed up with receipts, all on the record that showed my race was a factor in my prom rejection. I wasn't careless with Bethany's privacy, and she thanked me for keeping her family's identity safe. So how could the New Yorker imply the opposite? But here's the bigger question. Why did the New Yorker fact-check my stand-up special, but not properly fact-check their own article? If you're still here, I have 2 more stories that I want to address. Now, in my second special, The King's Jester, I tell a
I think the problem is that the less believable parts of the story made people think everything was fake. Yeah, maybe.
Story about how I met and was harassed by an FBI informant named Brother.
Yeah, I like that. Exactly. Duality of chat. You're too white for racism to happen to you, but also you're Muslim, so you like Hamas. Yeah. I mean, let's keep it $1.50 here, okay? I am very white. I do recognize that. Okay, most people don't immediately go, oh, that guy must be Muslim, right? Until they hear my name, and then they're like, okay, maybe that guy is Muslim. But ultimately, at this stage in my career, and at his stage in his career, and even when he was a fucking kid, everybody knew for both of us what our backgrounds are. That's why I was saying, like, I do understand what it's like sometimes.
Brother Eric. I talk about how he tried to entrap me at a gym, and when I made fun of him, he slammed me against the hood of a cop car. The truth is, I did have altercations with undercover law enforcement growing up, and that experience formed the basis of this story. But it didn't go down exactly like this. So I understand why people are upset. People face real danger at the hands of the police, and false stories can undermine real stories. And I am sorry I added to that problem. My intention wasn't to take away from these stories. It was to spotlight them through my special. That's why I used this story to talk about Hamid Hayat. Hamid and I were part of the same NorCal Muslim community. When he got entrapped, it rocked our community, and he spent 14 years in prison. We were the same age, same background, and like him, I also had run-ins with undercover agents. I was even physically harassed by them while playing basketball. Now you're probably wondering, why not just say that? So this is not an excuse, it is an explanation of my process. When I am storytelling, every beat has to do multiple things in a funny and impactful way. With the story, I had to set up 3 plot points. The moment I realized authority figures hate being made fun of, why I named my show Patriot Act, and spotlight the story of Hamid Hayat. The problem is 99% of people watching Netflix have no idea the FBI spied on Muslims at mosques, or they don't even believe it was real. And I know this because when I performed earlier versions of the story in front of audiences, they had no idea what I was talking about. FBI agents embedding in mosques and entrapping young Muslims through basketball or weightlifting or whatever. It sounds insane, but it was happening all over the country, even in my mosque in my hometown. It was infiltrated. And the footage that I used in the special proves that it was very real and very stupid. I wanted to recreate.
Will Hasan address how he stole your career? Yeah, what the fuck, dude? Address that part, you piece of shit.
That feeling that only Muslims felt for a broad audience, the feeling of paranoia and vindication, tension and release. That is why people laugh at this part. You don't get the release without the tension. That was my artistic intent, which I told the New Yorker. If you notice something about, even in the show, we pop out of it. And this is actually the point I was trying to make. My dad goes, that's not Brother Eric. His name is not Eric. His name is Craig. And the moment that the reaction the audience is having is, nudge me, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
The point is that it doesn't matter if his name was Eric, Craig, or Adam. The point is that there is now a pattern here at large.
Sure.
And that was the thing that I was trying to do. And ultimately, the emotional truth of trying to point a spotlight on my community story and Hamid's story is important to me. Hamid Hayat's story is really important to me. and he reached out to me after the article came out, and he wanted me to share these texts. He said that he had nothing but love for me and that I hadn't diminished his story. That's what I was trying to do. But the reporter was far more concerned about the FBI informant I talked about in the special, which honestly felt very weird.
Oh, there's another part. Yeah, this FBI informant, if I remember correctly, and I talked about this as well, is like a pedophile, isn't he? I think I talked about this while covering the story, writing the New Yorker thing too. Because like, we'll see. It might be a different FBI informant, but FBI 100. I think this was the guy.
The story about the informant. Actually, the bulk of the story is about Craig Monty. Like
Sure.
so did you reach out to Craig Monty?
No.
Do you feel like you owe him anything?
I've heard some things and I'd rather not speak on that.
So you feel like you don't owe him, you didn't owe him like a heads up?
As a Muslim, am I supposed to apologize?
Yeah, that part is fucking nuts. Like, I mean, dude, I can't believe he's fucking writing this entire video, but like, this was kind of my fucking take too. It's like, what do you mean? Like, owe him an apology for what?
Apologize to an ex-con who tried to entrap Muslims for the FBI. Yeah, maybe if he gave us a heads up, I would owe him a heads up. Now, the last story I want to talk about is the anthrax scare. My last special, I talk about how I received a letter in the mail.
This part is the fucking crazy one. I don't know if it was Craig Monteith that was the pedophile. Craig Monteith say he did not balk when his FBI handlers gave him the okay to have sex with Muslim women in his undercover operation was targeting, nor at the time did he shy away from recording their pillow talk. But it's like wild to be like, I can't believe you're fucking slandering this undercover FBI informant who was like, notice how he left the anthrax one for last in the video, meaning this one's probably a lie. Yeah, that one, for me, I think, that was the worst thing that he did. Like, that is indefensible. Like, this story was giving, like, Amy Schumer thinks Hamas is going to come and kill her in her fucking gated neighborhood in, like, Bel Air. You know what I mean? That's what it was giving a little bit.
And when I opened the letter, white powder fell on my daughter, and we had to take her to the hospital only to find out it was not real anthrax. This, as you know, is not how it went down. And let me just say, I am sorry for embellishing the story, or if anyone was worrying about me and my family, I apologize. But let me make something clear. A letter with white powder was sent to my apartment in February of 2019. I opened it in the kitchen, powder fell on the table, and my daughter was just a few feet away. After 10 seconds of freaking out, I realized it was not anthrax and that someone was fucking with me because people had been fucking with me since January 1st, 2019 after this happened.
Well, Netflix under fire today after its decision to pull an episode of a comedy show that was critical of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
The truth is, when this news broke, my life got very scary. Saudi bots were spamming my socials. A threatening letter was sent to Netflix. I was getting weird phone calls at night. Then fake anthrax was sent to my house. And after that happened, I asked Netflix for our security guard to follow me everywhere, and people noticed. Friends were texting me about seeing me rolling everywhere through New York with security. And at one point, my wife even asked our security detail if he knew any companies that sold those tiny GPS trackers for strollers because we were concerned that someone might try to kidnap or hurt our daughter. That is all real. The danger at that time was palpable, but Bina and I decided to keep the anthrax scare private because we were worried that Netflix might shut down my show, which would have put my entire staff out of work. Now you might be wondering, this is all terrifying, so why embellish? Why even say you took your daughter to the hospital? The night of the anthrax scare, Bina and I, we got into a huge argument and she kept asking, Hassan, what if this powder fell on our daughter? So I created.
Do you have similar experiences with safety as a brown man? I'm not a brown man. Don't fucking say dumb shit like this. I've never said I'm a brown man, okay? Suck my dick. The only reason why I experience issues with my fucking safety is not because I'm Muslim or anything. It's because I have a lot of Nazi haters.
Did the hospital scene to put the audience in that same shock and fear that me and Bina felt playing out that night.
Yeah, I still think it's fucking nuts. I think this is like a crazy thing to add. I told you guys, like, of course comedians embellish. Of course, like their job is to tell a story, and centering themselves in the middle of the story is not as big as an issue. Obviously, like that's the goal. The major reason why a lot of people are yelling at him is because like he is the type of person. He's the type of person to also do like a TED talk, basically. You know what I mean? What is this?
People of Gaza, like the
Israeli says senior Hamas leader killed 250 targets attacked in Gaza raid. Wait, there's a raid? What the fuck? A raid happened? What the fuck? Anyway, I think that there are issues with Hassan Minhaj. There are issues with every fucking person, you know. But I think that this part was a little bit different. Like the anthrax thing is like a little fucking wild. So, this is why you watch Al Jazeera. Yeah, okay. Where was I? Let me finish this and we'll get back to that. Okay. Lolo on Saturday. Yes. If we held Hassan Minhaj to based on a true story standards, none of this would be controversial. It might be a blind spot for me. Why is the anthrax story made up? Like bad to make up? Dude, it's like that part is like pretty fucking wild in my opinion. Like to say that he didn't like the only part that he made up was that he went to the hospital. That he didn't actually get he got fake anthrax sent to him and that the only part he lied about was that he took his daughter to the hospital, which I still think is like kind of a wild thing.
Then I added
to add on to the story.
The investigator character because women in my life were telling me that Bina was coming off super naggy in old versions of the story. So I gave some of Bina's lines to other characters so that her perspective was represented in a way that didn't reflect poorly on her. Again, I am sorry if I crossed a line here, but I told this story this way to put the audience on the roller coaster ride that we were both experiencing at that time. Now look, I understand why people were upset by all of this. Different comedians have different expectations built into their personas.
Like that part is the most powerful aspect of it is that like when he's telling that story, it's like anthrax fell on his fucking daughter in that moment. He thinks it's real. You know what I mean? That's that's a very emotional thing. But like I said, let me tell you something. Okay, let me tell you something. The reason why this is a big problem is because he's not a ha-ha fart guy. Okay, he's a serious. Look at me. I'm gonna tell you about racism and other stuff guy. That's it. There's a distinction in comedy, and I feel like that's the major reason as to why people take this super seriously, because like his fan base takes it super seriously as well, like the things that he says. I don't as much. I like him. I value his space. You know what I mean? I think he does a good job. There are obviously like I don't think he goes as hard. And I think that like the anthrax story, I guess like that's the most ridiculous one, as I said when we were looking at it. And I think that was that's the one that he didn't do a good enough job defending, in my opinion, here as well. Have you been silly today? I've been silly. I'm silly every day. I serve the top of the hour ad break every day, and I do a segue on it. You know what I mean? But yeah, if this were John Mulaney, nobody would give a shit, I guess. But the other two are pretty fucking damaging, in my opinion. Like the way that they cooked him on that, especially the first one, which he had the most evidence for, you know? For you, though, you will have no evidence at the top of the hour ad break as long as you subscribe for $5 or for free at the top of the hour, or get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. Let me tell you something. I could have used this as an opportunity to fucking just dagger this man and be like, this man, he fucking lived my dream. He was on the Daily Show. His name is Hassan. He does political satire. I grew up wanting to do basically what he was doing, and there's no place for two Hassans. Okay, you can have two Johns, right? You can have a Stephen Colbert and a Jon Stewart, but you can't have fucking two Hassans doing political satire, political comedy, or political commentary in general in America. Okay, and now we got three. We got Mehdi Hassan too. So I could have just fucking you brought up a pussy guillotine and asked if you've been silly today. Exactly. I could have fucking brought up the guillotine on him, but I didn't because I wanted to be honest. And I think that he is, he's an all right dude. You know, he's just. I think people take him too seriously. Maybe he takes himself too seriously, as a matter of fact.
I had two different expectations built into my work. My work as a storytelling comedian.
See, he's still doing it. Like he could just be like, dude, I'm a comedian. Okay, people yell at me all the fucking time, and I say I'm a dumb himbo. I'm a fucking Twitch streamer. Everybody calm down. But it's true. At the end of the day, I do talk about pussy guillotines. You know what I mean? I talk about dumb shit all the fucking time. I burp into the microphone, unlike Sean Hannity. And I think that that's important to understand. I don't place myself at this like high level as a fucking community leader or an activist or something. I'm just a normal guy. Okay? I'm just a normal dude. He wants people to take him seriously sometimes and not seriously sometimes is the problem. He really can't have it both ways. People are too dumb. I mean, I guess like I don't want to be taken seriously, but I do get taken seriously. You know what I mean? Why do you keep burping in the mic though? Your audio is impeccable except for the burps. I don't know. I like doing it.
And my work as a political comedian, where facts always come first. That is why the fact-checking on Patriot Act was extremely rigorous. The fact-checking in my congressional testimony, deeply rigorous. I don't think there's any...
Chat, I have no other place to put this, but as a breather mental break, I'm in a server with a mutual friend, and there's this dude in there who interacted once with Hasan IRL and is a deranged hater for some reason, and all of us are roasting this guy for being a fucking dork like that. Wait, he interacted with me? Where did he interact with me? I've never interacted with a fucking deranged hater in real life. He probably came up like a pussy. Like he probably came up as like a fan. Most of these guys fucking come in. Yeah, also you added me. Of course I'm gonna read it. Most of these dudes come up and act like they're gonna be fucking insane. Maybe the guy you yelled at TwitchCon. No, that's not that guy. No shot. This is from last year. There's no way. The dude I threw water at? Is that the guy? He responded. What did he say? What's this at? I lost it. One streamer from a LV house party years ago. HasanAbi goes to a house party in Vegas. What?
By the government. No, I believe that it should still be provided. Why not? Through a competitive industry, whether it's supplied by the government or supplied by a private industry.
This guy is the guy who hates me. I don't even remember this at all. I thought we were having like friendly banter. Why is this guy carried that with him for the rest of his life? Damn, dude. I did not think about this guy at all ever again for the rest of my life. And this man has like carried this much hate in his heart for fucking years. That's sad, brother. God damn. Damn, had a rent-free apartment in this dude's house for 2 whole ass years. Bro, that's sad. That's so sad. That's not healthy. I really, listen. I really feel bad. I do. Okay? But I promise you, dude, you go back and tell your homie in the fucking, he probably thinks you hate him law, same issue you brought up during Sad Boys. I don't think about him at all. I don't even know who this guy is. I don't even remember. If he came up to me right now, I would never be able to tell you who he is. I have no idea what his face looks like. This is from literally June 16th, 2021, where I went to a fucking random ass like house party in Las Vegas. I feel bad. I do feel bad. This man is debating at a house party. I love this clip. I think it's not good to carry that much anger, resentment, frustration. This is from like 2019. Yeah, it's even older than 2021 if I'm not mistaken. This was in, oh my God, it's even worse. Oh my God, this was when we were in Las Vegas during Bernie. This was like February 2020, dog. Oh my God. Oh, that's so bad. It's literally pre-COVID. Like a whole ass COVID occurred. A whole ass COVID occurred in between this moment and where we're at now. And you're telling me that this dude still carries resentment? Fuck. Wow. I wonder how many people I've like done this to that just like have made it their entire lives mission. I suspect it's like there's got to be a bunch that I've like banned and have said like, you know, I've banned and said really horrible things to at times when I was in my weakest moments, you know what I mean? And then they just like carry that for the rest of their lives. They like move into a community that is like more hospitable. Fuck. He watched you blow up. It made it worse. That's kind of, I'm telling you, resentment is important for me as well. Okay. As someone who is very spite driven personally. Okay. Let me tell you something. There's got to be a point where you let it go. It's better for your own health. Like spite that I have for my enemies are enemies that I haven't made up in my mind. They're enemies that are in my life, that have harmed me in my life. There's a difference between that and just like me hating someone viscerally, someone that I might not even have like a real fucking political disagreement with. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, there's a difference. This is why I don't understand so many people who are like liberals who are just like, no, Hasan is worse than Ben Shapiro. You know what I mean? People who say like, no, I'm infatuated with my hatred of you. I think you are worse because I think you're like a tanky secretly. That you're secretly tanky and you're just like more damaging to American politics than like Nick Fuentes or Ben Shapiro or any number of like genuine out and about Nazis where they're just like, what do you think is going on? You think there's a vanguard Marxist-Leninist party that is like that I'm cultivating here? Like what's happening? Desperately trying to fucking tie me to stochastic terrorism, not recognizing that the only way that works is if you are pushing in the direction of the pre-existing oppressive hierarchies and not vice versa. Makes me kind of sad. A Twitter thread the other day was confidently comparing you to Alex Jones. Yeah, that's what I mean. I feel like if when you get to that level, I don't think anyone is around you to check you to be like, what are you talking about? But when you get to that level, it's just like kind of it's Jover, where Hasan, people who hate see you as the guy who in charge of the American left unironically and have told me you have more power than some senators. Yeah, dude, I do. I have more power than senators. I hear a lot from your haters. I heard a lot from, they think you're worthy of hating criticism as the world's biggest political commentator, but like you say, you're just some guy. First of all, I'm not the world's biggest political commentator. Maybe by size, like actual physical stature, but nothing else. That's ridiculous. Like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, and the like exist. Tucker Carlson exists. So if you are talking to someone who lives in this universe with you, a universe in which Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Fox News in its entirety, which is the most popular news network, exists, and CNN and MSNBC, and they are still like, no, Hasan is the biggest political commentator, we have to criticize him, then you're talking to an unserious person. You're not talking to a serious person. You're talking to an unserious person. You're talking to a person who has horse blinders on, and they unfortunately only see the world from a very narrow framework. There's two different things that, there's two different conflicting factors here. One is whether or not I'm like actually the biggest political commentator. I'm not. That one is demonstrably false. I wish that's not the case. And the other factor here is like my impact. People that think my impact is actually bad, that I'm actually like regularly, I guess, I don't know, brainwashing people into not believing that America is good. You have said that you're the biggest on Twitch. That's a little bit different, I think, than me saying I'm the biggest political commentator, don't you think? The daily active usership of Twitch is marginal in comparison to like other video platforms. I hope you understand that. Yes, I'm the biggest political commentator on Twitch. That doesn't mean I'm the biggest political commentator. We're talking about a video game platform. What are we talking about? You think that, yeah. Anyway, the point is this. You're the biggest one they can interact with and reach because of the nature of live streaming. My point is this. I think that I've heard libs go after you for pushing people to the right by being divisive. Yeah, there's like, you'll notice something. I think a lot of people will come up with different reasons as to why I'm bad. And ultimately, the major difference is that they just don't agree with me. And oftentimes they're more conservative than I am. But they still want to maintain the aesthetic of being someone who's not a liberal and like more radical than liberal. So they look at like actual radical politics and are scared of it and hate that like it has to be like someone like myself and my existence makes them look bad in the eyes of normies, because then it's like they can't just say that they're just a regular liberal. So they have to turn around and say I'm like an ultra, like, or, well, they don't say that. They don't know what that term is, but they say I'm a tanky, right? And I think like part of the reason is because they're it's just very aesthetics focused. I'm going to move on from this point in a second. But one thing that I have talked about quite a bit back in the day, and maybe it bears repeating now, is that like because I've always wanted to build a large coalition, I don't really care about people that are to my further left, right? And I oftentimes will let a lot of things go, even if I don't fully agree with someone. Why do I do this? Well, I'll tell you why. Because those who are further down the line in their radical politics to myself, they'll end up pushing the needle in the direction that I think it must go. But that also is the reason why there are plenty of social democrats who I ultimately won't agree with, that I think are valid in their criticisms of the American project that has been a failure so far. Because from where we are standing, if you look at the material conditions, if you look at what American existence looks like, social democrats or people who only preach social democracy are still entirely considered radical. Look at Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has never pushed for any policy that is beyond social democracy. Okay? So I think ultimately my goal is to change people's minds. Anarchists are based as fuck. Go read some Malatesta. I've never read Malatesta, but I have read Kropotkin. I don't know why you are saying go read Kropotkin, my dude. I have. Anyway, I feel like you do the same thing with anarchists sometimes. Not all of us are extremely crusty. I agree. I mean, I'm making jokes, but I make jokes about fucking Marxist-Leninists too. I make jokes about every aspect of the left, and I make jokes about social democrats as well. Now, my point is this, okay? How can you say it's a failure? Maybe in the most literal sense of the word, but America is the longest standing democracy in the history of the world. It has proven a lot of things. Yeah, like might is right politics. How can I say it's a failure? There's no other country that has been less disrupted in its historical process due to how far away it is from every other fucking actual point of conflict and has yet provided decent results for the average citizen. Okay? What the fuck are we talking about? There are literally third world developing nations out there that use their marginal GDP to offer better amenities for their individual citizens. Meanwhile, you can't even fucking pay for insulin here. What the fuck are we talking about? There is no bigger failure than the United States, okay? It's a massive success if you are literally a Raytheon executive. It's a massive success if you're a capital owner. But it is demonstrably a failure for the average citizen. We have the most money. We are the wealthiest nation on the planet. We are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. And yet we still have people that are dying of a lack of adequate food. We have child starvation in this country. We have food insecurity in this country for children. Children still have fucking lunch debt in this country. What are we talking about? That is before we even get into healthcare and medicine. We pay 10 times the price for medicine than any other country in comparison to any other fucking country. We have the worst overarching healthcare outcomes in comparison to other OECD nations. It's completely unacceptable. We have a fucking mass shooting happening almost every goddamn day. That's why I say it's literally a failure, because it has been failing ever since the regulatory bodies have been captured. What? How can you say it's a failure? Maybe in the most literal sense of the word? Yeah, that's, what do you mean? You think I mean it in a spiritual sense? I mean it in a literal sense. It is a failure. A dude walked in to a bowling alley yesterday in Maine and shot 18 people and killed them, walked into a different fucking restaurant and killed people there too, and he's still on the lam. This dude had serious mental health issues, and he had been fucking... He had been stopped before. I know this guy agrees with me. I don't know why he just said it in a very contentious way. Yeah. National total of $262 million in student lunch debt annually, and we are going to keep shaming kids, and we're going to send $1 trillion to wars. It's like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. America is literally, for all of its advantages, America is literally the biggest failure, the most abject failure. Anyway. So... yeah, it's a massive failure. My point was there's a lot of people that get mad at me when I say America bad, but they don't hear why I say America bad. They love it when I say America bad because no healthcare, right? But they don't like it when I say America bad, and maybe some other countries do good things that America should do when it's outside of the Western sphere of influence. Because I make comparisons to Norway all the fucking time, and people go, you know what? That's right. But if I make comparisons to China, then God fucking forbid, dude. Are you kidding me? High-speed rail? You better fucking shut your goddamn mouth, you communist piece of shit. You want 7 gorillion Uyghur Muslims to be genocided, okay? You want every fucking Muslim to be genocided like they did in Xinjiang. That's what you want to do. I know this. Also, simultaneously, I love when Israel is doing genocide to the Palestinians. That's what I love. But oh my God, dude, China, they're the ones who did it the most and the maximum amount and in an unacceptable way because they did it outside of the sphere of American influence. But Israel, when they do it, it's okay. Let's not call it a genocide now. Okay, let's not call it a fucking genocide. You're crazy. Yeah. So, in my view, your thing is repeating things 450,000 times to people who came in late and undue damage from feminist cringe compilations. Personally, coverage saved my life, and I finally accept I'm trans and I'm happy. You're my Hassan, best Hassan. Oh, thank you. There's no institutional left in the United States. The most radical in government is Bernie Sanders, and these political drama bait channels want us to think that the 5 tankies on a Discord are a real serious problem. Goofy ass on serious leftists. Yes, you very succinctly put my criticism of all of the drama baiters in the political sphere. You very succinctly explained it. Okay, that's number one. That's why I always get mad when I see people left punching. Like, I immediately go, okay, you're not a serious person. Fuck off. Like, really? That's your biggest concern? Your biggest concern on the planet is someone you suspect has an unnuanced view, even though they might have a nuanced view of someone that you and everybody else considers a foreign adversary to America? Yeah, ridiculous. So the last thing I want to mention before moving on from this point is that those guys that are to your left, that are more radical than you, have a capacity to soften your perspective. That's another reason why I don't really care too much, because they end up pulling people in your direction ultimately, and I don't have an issue with that. It's great. Pull them in my direction. I like that. Ask any of those anti-tanky folks which real-world social experience they support/like, and then you'll see that they are not actually leftists. Exactly. There's also 2 different conflicting thoughts here. I think that a lot of people don't understand a very important thing, okay? It's not about like real existing socialism or historical socialism, because there's wrongs in every state. Every state has had issues, right? It's about recognizing those issues and making sure that you can improve upon them, whether it be the Chinese state currently, or whether it be the USSR, or whether it be Cuba, which is pretty perfect, actually, as a matter of fact, and has been a beacon of hope and prosperity in a time when the world has been out to get them, and that's still pretty cool. But hey, that's different. That's a different point. But what I'm trying to say is that there's two different thoughts here. There's also the anti-imperialist attitude that people have. I think that's one that people forget. People have a right to exercise autonomy. People have a right to be devoid of Western influence if they if they wish to do so. And no, I don't mean like in Uganda where they're executing homosexuals or whatever, which is ironically another Western Christian missionary project. I mean, working deliberately to rid your nation state of French involvement in your financial instruments, for example. Like that can only be conducted when you align with another bad state actor, but it's still ultimately not the worst thing, right? It's a byproduct of having more than one state be the global hegemonic superpower. The way I think about it is I don't agree with Hamas's tactics. I don't agree with or the Al-Qassam tactics. I don't agree with the worldview that they have, obviously, and I think that it would be better served if there was a different leadership, right? But I also perfectly understand where this kind of attitude develops. I get it. Like, I know where it's coming from. I know how it festers. I know how it manifests. I know how people who feel helpless end up getting more and more radicalized. I've talked about this quite a bit, and it doesn't mean I'm a fucking Hamas supporter. Okay, please stop giving so much time to the arguments of these psycho hate watchers. I think that it's I'm not just like giving arguments to psycho hate watchers, chatter. I think I'm just trying to describe my perspective. Anyway, this is not a war. Gaza is not a state, but a colonized territory under siege by a nuclear power. Hamas is not an army, but a resistance movement. Colonized people have the right to arm resistance under international law. Haas, why do you have coke nose lately? You mean being sick? Like, because I came back from a convention and I'm sick? That's what you think? That's what you called being sick and having a stuffy nose? Coke nose? I actually don't understand it. Like, I know your ass is on Twitch all day, every day because you have a sock account. Nobody who has a sock account goes outside and socializes with other humans and goes to parties where there's cocaine readily available. Sorry, that's just the truth. If you have made a sock account to be a part of this broadcast after you've been banned, you've never done drugs. Like, you don't know what a fucking coke nose is. You've only seen it on a fucking USA Today or like on a USA TV show. You know what I mean? Shitty budget, like USA TV show. That's the only time you've ever heard of coke or coke nose or whatever the fuck. You've never been around cocaine. You have a sock account. So why did you demonstrate how little you understand how human beings operate? That you went from maybe this guy's sick to like he probably has coke nose. Sick. Oh my God, I can't believe this. Oh Jesus Christ, I can't believe he just revealed this vlog footage from a year ago. I don't even know if I want to watch this right now. I'm scared. Anyway, IDF spokesman says IDF forces will continue raids in the Gaza Strip tonight as well, and it will continue more in the coming days. So let's watch.
Well, as Israel continues to step up its relentless air attacks on Gaza, the IDF said it had attacked more than 250 targets during its brief raid into the territory overnight.
Bro read a really good point and proceeded to ignore to read a comment about coke. Please? What really good point did I read?
And has also killed a senior leader of Hamas, which is designated as a terrorist organization by the UK. While UN agencies on the ground in Gaza say that fuel supplies are still urgently needed if they continue their humanitarian work. Our international editor, Lindsay Hilsum, has this report, and be warned, there are distressing scenes.
Israeli armoured vehicles crossed into Gaza overnight, armoured bulldozers levelling the terrain. Footage provided by the Israeli Defence Force showed a column moving inside Gaza and firing tank shells. The IDF said the brief incursion was in preparation for the next stages of combat, including gathering intelligence.
Bro, they are never going in. They're never going in with like actual fucking ground troops, it seems like. They're like, nope. First we bombed it from the air. Now we're bombing it with fucking tanks. Like, Jesus Christ, dude.
עם מאמץ מבצעי, כולל המאמץ המבצעי שראינו אתמול בצפון הרצועה, אנחנו ממשיכים לקיים פשיטות כאלה, שהתכלית שלהם היא לאסוף מידע בשטח, שנוכל להצליח.
The desire to not let Palestine be sacrificed to the altar of Hamas is legit, but I think if one is to do justice to the notion of empathy, it is to imagine the Israel position as one where good Palestinians need to drop the passive lines about Hamas. Yeah, dude, that's why Israel's been occupying fucking the West Bank, because of the passive lines that Palestinians keep dropping about Hamas. Man, come on, dog. Come on. Be serious. Be for fucking real, okay? Israel's been doing this before Hamas, and Israel will continue doing it after Hamas, okay? It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, there's unconditional support for the IDF and its actions. It's at like a 75% approval rating. Netanyahu is at an 85% disapproval rating. The IDF is at a 75% approval rating. Who do you think is dropping the fucking bombs? If we're working off of approval ratings of unjustifiable and brutal acts, then holy moly, the entire fucking Western world needs to be nuked with the broad support that they've offered to the ethnic cleansing campaign that Israel has been engaging in. If that is the standard, okay, which is not my standard and that's not your standard either, let me tell you, there's not a single fucking person that deserves to be alive then. That's crazy. We have a broad majority support for Israel in this country, and not a single person would ever advocate to do 1,000 9/11s in America and have it be justified for the broad support that the country has, okay? Just like the broad support that the IDF enjoys as is engaging in an ethnic cleansing campaign does not justify random Israeli civilians being fucking slaughtered. Okay? This is just neoliberal propaganda that's rotted people's brains. This is the Russians should just have protested take, but turbocharged because it makes even less sense for Palestinians. Yeah, literally. No, exactly. Exactly. It's so weird that it's always America's adversaries that should have just protested harder, and that's why they deserve the fate that befalls them, oftentimes as an act of collective punishment, whether it be sanctions, crippling economic sanctions usually, or collective punishment in the form of war crimes like America invading your country and killing your civilians, your children, your babies, or Israel doing a bombing campaign in the Gaza Strip, a open-air prison that it operates personally. These are always just America's enemies that have to just withstand the might, you know? Why? Because they didn't protest. Fucking ridiculous. You would not ever allow a standard like this to apply to you. If this standard applied to you, okay, if this standard applied to you, you and myself included, we would all deserve to be ruthlessly slaughtered for our majority consensus, broad support for the war crimes that Israel is engaging in. Same with Israel. And I don't think many of you are J.D. Pond style permanent first world genocide supporters. So I don't want to hear from you about that. Okay? I'm not. The problem with military Keynesianism is that it eventually you run out of other people's countries to bomb. The White House has been quietly urging lawmakers in both parties to sell the war efforts abroad as a potential economic boom at home. That's crazy. Aides have been distributing talking points to Democrats and Republicans who have been supportive of continued efforts to fund Ukraine's resistance to make the case that doing so is good for American jobs, according to 5 White House aides and lawmakers familiar with the effort and granted anonymity to speak freely. Hamas won the election with 53%. Joe Brandon won with 52%. So what are you saying? So like that we can have another larger superpower do to us what Israel has done to Gaza? Is that what you're saying? But like less, 1% less? Is that what you're saying? Also, that's not even correct because Palestinian elections cannot be conducted in a fair and free way to begin with because they're under occupation. They were only allowed to have an election because America told them to have an election against the wishes of the secular parties who said that they were not ready for it. In most of those elections, which you would know if you ever read a fucking book, I'm saying it's fucked to the doom Palestine for a party that was like 1% more popular than a dead guy. Oh, okay. All right. Because in that situation, the reason why Hamas won is because they ran as an anti-corruption party against, in most races, multiple people that split the secular vote. Also, it doesn't even matter because, you know, the population in Gaza is fucking children. They're children, okay? So they didn't even get to vote in the 2006 election. They were not there. They were not alive, or they were like 3. That is, if they survived. Wasn't it a parliament system, so it would have had the power share? Yes, until the coup where, until the second flub that came down from George W. Bush that forced the coup that failed, that where Hamas controlled all levers of power in Gaza and started the final stage of its endless endeavor to become the singular force for Palestinians. A data broker on the newly launched ransomed forums posted data for sale, which they claim has classified NATO data to include U.S. data associated with the FBI, CIA, AR Cyber, and other DoD organizations. Wait, what? Fuck. What is it? Soon to declassify documents for full-scale invasion plans into Palestine involvement. I don't believe this. I have documents that also explain the inevitable UniGov. This plan is to split into 605 parts, which will explain how the war will result in the United States government offering a solution to end the war, which will result in a government ran by 5 people that are controlled by the United States government. What? Why did you send this to me? What the fuck? All right, let's continue.
ולהבין מי חטוף, מי נהדר, ולעדכן את המשפחות. אנחנו נמשיך לעשות את זה, המספר הזה עוד ישתנה, ואנחנו עומדים כרגע על 224.
Attacks by Israeli fighter jets. Targeted, say the Israelis, on Hamas infrastructure, command centers, tunnels and rocket launchers, most in civilian areas. It must be as terrifying for the hostages as for the Palestinian civilians. Hamas said today that 50 hostages have been killed in Israeli bombing, a claim that is impossible to verify. Now, in Tel Aviv this evening, relatives and supporters demanded that the Israeli government and military prioritize the release of the hostages and keep them in mind during preparations for the larger ground invasion of Gaza.
I have a friend, a cousin, is held hostage. Yes.
That must be very worrying.
Very. A lot. You can't sleep at night to think that they are there with the bombs and all the things that happened there. We must cease fire and bring the hostage back, first of all. This is the humanitarian and the most important thing to do.
A reminder that Hamas is still firing rockets into Israel, that you must run for cover or hit the deck. These rockets, like most, were shot down by the Iron Dome air defense system, while people waited for the all clear. In Gaza, there's no siren. No air defense system, no escape, not even in the south of the Strip, where Israel has told them to go for safety. Not in their own houses, nowhere.
كنا قاعدين هنا هو صوت انفجارات بشكل مش طبيعي. كل المباني هذه كلها بفجأة هيك ضربوا يمكن أكثر من قنبلة كم من طن يمكن 6
They have no shelters for rockets. They have no Iron Dome. They got nothing.
طن يمكن تقريبا.
And they're lobbing our rockets, our missiles into there.
كله راح
killing
هذا
them.
كله اتدمر كله تحت في لسان قاد كثير لسه.
The children of Gaza's world is literally collapsing around them. Death is overwhelming, unbearable, beyond words. So many funerals for civilians every day at the Nasser Medical Center in Khan Yunis. Even as Israel announced that they had killed a senior Hamas intelligence operative, who they say was one of the architects of the October the 7th attacks. The dead mourned here are collateral damage.
كيف صار إرهابي اللي عمره سنة؟ ليش ينقصف اللي عمره سنة؟ ليش؟ لسه ما شافش دنيته، كلمة بابا ما عرفش يحكيها، أبوه ما عرفش اسمه عشان يستشهد. أطفال 7 أيام و4 أيام استشهدوا ليش؟
Wael Al-Datu, the resident Al Jazeera correspondent, lost his wife, son, daughter and infant grandson, crushed under the rubble of the building where they had fled to in central Gaza. This was Beit Hanun in Gaza on May the 10th, and this was it last week.
I need you to understand something. Like, you look at this and you have access to this information. You know who else has access to this information? Motherfucking Joe Biden. Okay? He has access to this information too. So think about that. Think about that when you hear him say something so fucking awful, like, I just don't know if I can trust the numbers coming out of Palestinian authorities.
A community obliterated. Israel may mount several more incursions like last night's before a larger foray. They call the airstrikes softening up. The people of Gaza, like the relatives of the hostages, must wonder what will ever bring this horror to an end.
And Lindsay joins me now from Tel Aviv. Lindsay, is there any more information on the timing of this ground invasion?
Well, they're not going to tell us the timing, but they do say that they are determined to go ahead with it. That is against the advice, I suspect, of the Americans and the French as well. I was talking to a colonel in the reserve today. One of his jobs is to call people individually in Gaza City and tell them to go south, where it will, he says, be safer. Of course, we've seen that...
Safer, as in Not safe, because we'll still bomb the south as well, but, you know, more safe than northern Gaza. Remember that. That's what they mean.
Khan Yunis, which is in the south, is not safe at all. But then he said that what is going to happen is that Gaza City, and I quote, will be turned into a parking lot before the Israelis go in with the infantry and the tanks. Now, that is extremely chilling. What he's saying is more and more bombing from the skies. Now, he was very much on the hawkish end, I would say, but it gives some idea of the tenor of the conversation within the military, and it gives some idea of how they are determined to go ahead with this, whatever anyone on the outside says or advises.
Interesting. And there was some stuff on my phone that popped up a few hours ago, I'm sure the same on yours, that a Hamas delegation had arrived in Moscow, of all places, and the Israeli government is now calling on Moscow to kick the delegation out. Can you tell us any more?
Well, this is very interesting because Israel actually has very good relations with Russia. Of course, there are a lot of Russian Jews who came here after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And although Israel rails against all the countries that have relations with Hamas or which have Hamas delegations in them, whether that's visiting Russia or based in Qatar or in Turkey, actually they will need those countries. They need those countries now in order to negotiate for some of those hostages to get out. In fact, one of the senior Israeli
Hamas delegation, are you kidding me? There's no delegation left? Yes, there are. What are you talking about? Yeah, of course there are. Hamas's leadership structure is almost entirely outside of Gaza. They operate out of Qatar.
The advisors to Benjamin Netanyahu the other day praised Qatar for what it was doing on hostages, even as others are condemning Qatar for keeping relations with Hamas. But in the end, there will not be a total military solution. There will have to be some kind of negotiation, even if it's a negotiation for surrender or a negotiation for Hamas leaders to go into exile. Countries like Russia, Qatar, Turkey, Egypt are going to be essential for that, whatever the Israelis say at the moment.
Lindsay in Tel Aviv, thank you very much, as ever. Well, it's been more and more difficult for us to reach doctors inside Gaza. But earlier I spoke to Dr. Mohammed Abu Mugaisib, a medical coordinator for Médecins Sans Frontières there, and asked him what pressures the civilians are facing now.
Another Hamas guy.
I mean, every day it's becoming worse and worse. I mean, the situation. I mean, I mean, people are dying every day. We are dying every day here in Gaza. I mean, in terms of basic life things, I mean, it's becoming worse. Drinkable water is very difficult to find. Food are limited. Hospitals, I mean, hospitals are no more hospitals, you can call them. You can call them just, I mean, shelters, parking. I mean, people are sheltering there. There is no privacy anymore. I mean, doctors are crying, surgeons are crying, they're exhausted. They are working since 19 days, 24 hours or 7. I mean, the situation is really horrible.
The Israelis are saying that they're trying to kill Hamas fighters. Who is dying in these airstrikes?
What we are seeing is children and civilians who are dying. I mean, bombing one building, what you can get is dead children, dead babies, and wounded babies and wounded women. That's what we get in the hospitals.
And what can you do for them when they come to your hospitals? What's left in terms of medicine and supplies?
I mean, we are operating, I mean, our surgeons, you maybe heard we are operating on the floor. I mean, we are operating without painkillers, without anesthesia. They are amputating patient children without anesthesia. Imagine in front of their families, the operation is done, the surgical operation. I mean, the surgeons are completely exhausted. Some of them, they broke up. I mean, they are burned out. They are crying. They are working since 19 days without stop.
What about the fuel situation in the hospitals? Do you still have enough fuel?
I mean, according to the health authorities, there is fuel running, but I think it's limited. I mean, sooner or later it will stop because the hospital.
Médecins Sans Frontières, an NGO, Doctors Without Borders. Thanks, Chatter. I know that. When I said he's Hamas, I was joking. It was a dark, cruel joke about the way that Israel operates.
hospitals are depending 100% on generators and means on fuel. So if the fuel will not enter tomorrow, after tomorrow, it will stop. I think at that moment there will be a huge disaster in Gaza.
The Gaza Health Ministry has compiled a list of all the 7,000 or so people who have been killed in these bombardments, their names and their ID numbers. Would you like to see the Israeli authorities have a look at that list?
Of course, I would like them to see. To see, and I'm sure they know. They know very well Gaza. They know the neighborhood of Gaza. They know where to target. They see the TV. They see the most of them are civilians. But I think it's. What we want is to stop the war. That's it. We as well here. I'm MSF.
He's basically saying Israel knows where the target. He's trying to get the doctor, to say that Israel is deliberately targeting civilians, and he doesn't want to say it, but he's basically saying it without saying it. That's it.
Yes, I'm representing Doctors Without Borders, but I'm also calling to stop the war. We are dying every day. Everyone in Gaza, the population is dying every day.
And finally and briefly, do you have any family with you in the Gaza Strip?
Yes, I am with my family, and of course, we are sheltering. And according to the warning that we had to move to the south, we moved to the south. But actually, since 48 hours, the bombing and the airstrikes are on the south, morning till evening. It's close even to the place that I was sheltering in. And so, there is no safe place actually.
Okay, we'll leave it there. We wish you all the best. Good luck. Mohammed Abu Mugaisib, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk now to Elon Levy, who's a spokesman for the Israeli government. Elon Levy, thank you very much for coming back on our program. I want to first of all start by asking you about the
This guy fucking sucks.
situation in Moscow, which is rather strange. Hamas delegation goes to Moscow. This is a capital with which Israel has good relations, and you're now calling on the Russians to expel Hamas. Explain that to us, please.
Indeed, Hamas showed the world that it is worse than ISIS with the October 7th massacre, and we expect...
Wait, it was Hamas? Bro, first it was 15 9/11s, now it's 20 9/11s. First it was Hamas's ISIS, and now it's worse than ISIS? That's crazy. The 9/11 inflation has hit Hamas super hard, bro. These guys are like one step removed from being like, Hamas is worse than Hitler. Like, it's crazy.
Expect the world to treat it exactly like ISIS. No country in the world would have diplomatic relations or accept diplomatic delegations from ISIS.
Except, Israel is worse at its indiscriminate violence against the civilian population that it has put in an open air prison. So technically, by that design, no country should ever talk to Israel. But of course, that's not the case, right? Wait another week for that. Yeah, next week it's going to be like Hamas worse than fucking Nazi Germany.
And the same is true of Hamas. We completely condemn the invitation for Hamas to visit Moscow. We view this as an act of support for terrorism, an act that legitimizes their atrocities.
They want it both ways. Like, they want to fucking prop up Hamas as like the only fucking governing body. They bully and destroy the Palestinian Authority. And then when other nations decide to also negotiate with Hamas because, like, that's what Israel's propped up as the only guy, they get mad. Your man did this. Benjamin Netanyahu and every other leadership in Israel has done similar things, but still.
And we're calling on the Russians to expel the Hamas delegation immediately and the whole world to close ranks against Hamas, just as the whole world closed ranks against ISIS a decade ago.
But the Russians could come in quite handy as mediators, and we know that you talk to the Qataris talk to Hamas, and there is mediation behind closed doors. Could the Russians do the same thing, or are they completely, is it unacceptable for them to have anything to do with Hamas whatsoever?
It is unacceptable for any nation to have anything to do with the terror organization that on October 7th burned, butchered, raped, tortured, and mutilated its way through the communities in southern Israel. Hamas is worse than ISIS. It broadcasts its crimes live, sometimes on its victims' own social media, with horrific violence trying to shock the world. And we expect the whole world to close ranks around Hamas as we continue with our campaign to wipe Hamas out, by the way, just as the whole civilized world wiped out ISIS 10 years ago. That is our model for the campaign with Hamas. We've learned from the West, learned from the Western campaign, from the international coalition to destroy ISIS, and that's what we intend to continue.
Wait, why can't I click on this? What the fuck? Come on. Give me the pub. Ay, that's annoying. The article title reads, why is Israel not intervening to counter the Islamic State? Though frequently threatened by the Islamic State, Israel has maintained since the beginning of the conflict a consistent non-interventionist policy. Israel halts medical treatment, which meant that they were giving medical treatment for members of Syria's Nusra Front. The change took place a month after Israeli Druze ambushed wounded Syrian rebels being transported in IDF ambulances, killing one of the men. 5 members of the Druze community were later arrested on suspicion of murder. Why is it that Israel was not intervening with ISIS, even though they say Hamas is ISIS? What's that about? No relations with terrorist collectives that don't abide by international law? Yo, Israel, is this you? How Israel became a safe haven for Russian billionaires? I'm sorry. Are you going to tell me that it's really weird that Israel is one of the most common second passports among Russian-born billionaires? You think there's a that's crazy. How about you chill out, dude? What are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that Israel is incredibly self-interested? Does this argument even matter? Hamas and ISIS are both horrible. I mean, by the metrics of how horrible Hamas is, like, Israel is doing the same shit tenfold now. Okay? That's kind of the major point that I have, the major point of contention that I have with Israel's operations. I hope people understand that. Like, yeah, Hamas is bad. What they did on October 7th was ruthless. It was brutal. You know what else is also ruthless and brutal? Doing that tenfold, which is what Israel is doing and has been doing even before October 7th. It's orders of magnitude worse. So you can fucking keep chirping and say Hamas is ISIS, Hamas is ISIS, they're the terrorists, we are the state, they're the terrorists, we're the state. But people see it. People see what's going on. Hamas does not have the capacity to starve the entire 9 million Israeli population. Hamas does not have the capacity to stop them from having access to food, access to water, access to power, access to fuel, which is one of the only ways that the desalination pumps can work inside of Gaza. Only way that hospitals can operate inside of Gaza. Come on, dude. In the game of terrorism, Israel is the Mac Daddy. Well, America is the Mac Daddy. Israel is the little bro, but still significantly more successful at doing terror than Hamas ever could. Unimaginable. Russian libs are insanely fucking unhinged on this, by the way. Literally the worst Zionist takes imaginable. As a Georgian, now I feel like a fucking idiot after pushing back against the dehumanization of Russians for the past year. Yeah. Oh, what is this article, bro? How Jewish American pedophiles hide from justice in Israel? What the fuck is this article?
Convicted American pedophiles to escape justice by moving to Israel. So Ian Lee has been following this for more than a year, and he traveled to Israel for this investigation. He worked with a group that
Okay, I don't want to watch this. I don't want to watch that because you want to know why I don't want to watch that? Well, one, because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. And two, I don't want to take that away from France. Like, it's kind of fucked up for us to just be like, Israel is taking away safe harbor for pedophiles away from the shining beacon of pedophile prosperity, France. You know what I mean? It's kind of fucked. It's kind of fucked. They want to be European, and they're doing French shit. France only wants the entertainment industry pedos. That's true. France is like, we will only take your pedophiles if they're very good at their work. Not very good at pedophilia. That part doesn't matter, but they have to be very good at movies. If they got movie magic mindset, we will take them. Yeah. Anyway.
You're doing with Hamas until victory.
Okay, you must have heard about this list of the 7,000 victims in Gaza of Israeli bombing, their names and their ID numbers issued by the Gaza Health Ministry. Have you seen that list?
I have not seen that list. I have to say the human suffering in Gaza as a result of Hamas's decision to declare war on the people of Israel on October 7th is truly heartbreaking. None of us want to be in this situation. It's the situation we're in because Hamas declared war.
It's just like, it's funny because, again, like, they act like October 7 was in a vacuum. Like, there's no way that Palestinians could fucking push back. You know what I mean? Like, fucking lose their minds and, like, ultimately arrive at a point where they're just like, this is the military operation. Like, we're doing this, okay? But also, simultaneously, they're like, every single Gazan has to die because they did October 7. And it's like, it's this, Like, if one thing is bad, you have to understand that you are responsible and you're doing it, making it worse. I don't know. Maybe he was in a coma and he woke up. He had no idea. He was in a time chamber since 1944, and he just woke up on October 7th, 2023, and was like, "That's crazy. I can't believe that we finally got a nation state with all mostly peaceful means. I assume, right? Because we're a peaceful people." And then now these fucking guys are coming out of nowhere and attacking us. That's really fucked up, you know? I saw a quote, "We will never forgive the Arabs for making us kill their children. Somehow Israel manages to be the victim still." Yeah, it's nuts. IDF is backing out from Nablus. They have failed again.
Us dragged us into a war we didn't want or even expect. But it's important to understand that, according to the Gaza health authorities...
Do you want to see that list? Are you interested in the list?
I would certainly like to, because according to Hamas, if you were to believe Hamas, there are no terrorists in the Gaza Strip and there are no civilians in Israel. We've been very clear that our goal is to continue targeting the terrorists who perpetrated the October 7th massacre. That's why we're asking civilians to get out of the way, despite Hamas doing everything it can to stop them evacuating, setting up roadblocks.
Right.
We want to
Let
go
me just
after the
stop you
terrorists.
there,
We want the civilians to
Can I
move.
just stop you there for a second? You did ask them to move, and they did move, and then you bombed them where they moved to.
God damn, dude, what is happening with Channel 4? Why are they like this? Can someone explain this to me? Can a British person finally speak out in the chat and say something productive for once? Why are they like this? They've been like consistently better than most other Western media.
I'll give you an example. Yesterday, the IDF struck a...
I feel like I understand why the Tories are constantly trying to take their funds away. I get it. They kind of deserve it. You know what I mean? They're like actually doing decent journalism, which is kind of fucked up. And therefore I perfectly understand why the pedophile Tories want to take all the funds away, the remaining funds.
Target in Khan Yunis in the south of the Gaza Strip. It was a rocket launcher that Hamas had set up between a mosque and a kindergarten. Under international law, that is 100% a legitimate military target. Our campaign, our exercise of our right to self-defense in this campaign is to totally eliminate the enemy that perpetrated the October 7th massacre. And the reason that we're...
And their babies. The babies played a big role. 3,000 children have been ruthlessly slaughtered by Israel since October 7th. 3,000 children, just children, under the age of 18, okay? So what is this man saying? Is he saying that, like, these 3,000 children are Hamas? Is he saying that they had to die to take revenge on October 7th? Are the kids, are they a part of the operations? Like, what do they do?
We're asking civilians to move out of the northern Gaza Strip. By the way, to move a short distance. The total distance is the length of the Edgware Road in London. Right. The reason we're asking them to move is because Hamas is embedded.
Never forget, everything that Israel says about Gaza and Hamas can be literally deployed back to them as an argument. If you don't even know anything about the conversation, you could literally turn around and say every single thing back to them and ask, do you think this is consistent? Is this a consistent principle you have? I'll give you another example. The baby deaths, right? Like, if you think that your bombing campaign is justifiable upon Gaza, which is your open air prison, your concentration camp that you operate, okay, does that fucking mean that, like, the babies that were burned in a kibbutz on October 7th, was that justifiable? This was retaliation for Israel's brutal occupation. Do you find that to be justifiable? No, you don't. Of course you don't find that to be justifiable. It's crazy. Nobody wants babies to fucking die. So why is it okay when one size babies fucking die? Why is that all right? Why are you making that argument? People always fucking say, for example, oh, well, Israel has a right to defend itself. Okay, Palestinians have a right to defend themselves. Do they not? They do. I mean, according to international law, they have a right to defend themselves. It's what they do in their defense that is like called in the question. Israel says Palestinians have human shields. Well, the IDF headquarters is in a fucking mall. Israel has mandatory service, which means every single fucking Israeli adult has at some point become a soldier, which makes them enemy combatants. More so than the random Palestinians that don't have mandatory conscription or mandatory service. So would you consider all Israelis that were murdered, ruthlessly slaughtered, to be enemy combatants? All men and women have to serve in the Israeli military. So what's going on there? Are they all enemy combatants that were slaughtered? Or do you consider them to be civilians that were slaughtered? And also on top of that, absolutely zero people would consider that to be appropriate. except for like random people online that you know, everybody gets hung up on and think is a demonstration of how the entirety of the DSA operates or some shit, right? So how does that work? Why does it work that way? Why does it work that way? Because I'll tell you why it works that way. Because there's a second thing that people are not calling into question here, which is that Palestinians are not human. Israelis are. Palestinians are enemy combatants. Israelis are our neighbors. That's it. That's the major reason. That's the only when you come to that conclusion do you operate under the recognition that these are justifiable targets. These babies that have been slaughtered are perfectly fine. They should be slaughtered.
Sorry, Matt, if I could just explain, because I think it's an important point. Hamas has embedded its tunnels deep underneath civilian areas. And that's why we're asking people to move, because Hamas has put them in danger, and we don't want them to be in danger. We want to hurt Hamas, not the people of Gaza.
Have you ever... Okay, let me just...
That's bullshit. Suck my dick, you fucking liar.
Let me ask you finally, have you ever considered the possibility that, like other extremist organizations, Hamas may want you to overreact? They may want you to fall in what could ultimately...
Yeah, I mean, look. Much of the Kiryat today is located in the sands of Sarona, Templar, British Mandate. Ha-Kiryat, the Kiryat, is an area in central Tel Aviv consisting of urban military base north of Kaplan Street and a civilian area south of it. Ha-Kiryat contains the Tel Aviv District's government center and major Israel Defense Forces, Camp Rabin, named after Yitzhak Rabin. It's the IDF headquarters. It's in the middle of a fucking area. It's in the middle of a civilian area.
Be a trap, and that this would be detrimental to Israel's image around the world and also ultimately to your own security, even if you manage to kill Hamas commanders.
The attack that Hamas perpetrated on the morning of October 7th, when it murdered 1,400 of our people, tortured and it hurt more than 5,000 people, took 220 people hostage, was beyond the worst case nightmare scenarios that anyone in this country could imagine. And we're determined not to go back to 6 o'clock on the morning on October 7th. We can no longer live beside an ISIS-like terror organization that feels free and emboldened.
Yeah, again, like I said, dude, it's wild that they keep saying ISIS because, like, they've literally worked with ISIS. Like, come on, dude. Maybe that's why they wanted to, like, fuck up the SEO so nobody Googles Israel ISIS and finds out that, like, they've collaborated, you know? They've done collabs, like Fuckboy Supreme style.
To butcher, rape, burn, and behead our people at will. And that's why we're glad we're building an international coalition to wipe out ISIS, to wipe out Hamas, just as the civilized world wiped out ISIS. And we hope that civilians will indeed heed our warning, despite Hamas's best efforts to physically block them from leaving, which I don't need to say is, of course, a war crime.
Yeah, dude, you blowing up civilians is not a war crime. It's that Hamas is physically blocking people. Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. All right, got to leave it there. And we have documented, Elon Levy, the suffering of the Israeli people in great detail and spoken to the families of the bereaved and the kidnapped. Thank you very much for coming on the program. Now, because we
didn't even slightly answer the question because they look fucking awful. I know, but it's like really annoying. Don't let any of these fucking charlatans get away with this shit, okay? It's so frustrating to me. Like, they were pretty good. Why do they insist so much on the ISIS comparison? Because the goal is to do a final solution on Palestinians in Gaza. Gaza is operated by Hamas. Hamas is the government there, okay? So the more you say Palestinians voted for Hamas, the more you say Hamas is ISIS, the more you conflate the difference between an average Palestinian and Hamas that you have already very successfully portrayed as a terror cell, the less people will look at what you're doing as like a genocide.
We cannot get access to Gaza ourselves. We can only get information about casualties from the Gaza Ministry of Health, which, like all government agencies there, is appointed by Hamas. Yesterday, President Biden cast doubt on their statistics, saying that no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. In response, the Gaza Health Ministry has tonight published a list of the names, as you just heard, and the ID numbers of more than...
Did you not say Hamas is a terrorist group? Wait, you mean, like, chat, Ahmad, you don't have to ban that guy. No, terrorism is a absolute fucking, absolutely a political designation. It is meant to deny habeas corpus to the enemy combatant. That's what it is. That's the real reason why we make this declaration, that someone is a terrorist. That's it. If you want to understand it from a political science perspective, that's what it is. My distinction, for the most part, is that civilian, non-combatant casualties are completely unacceptable. Okay? I think that they're unacceptable. They do happen as a consequence of how gruesome the conditions are that people are subjected to. They happen with the ANC. They happen with the IRA, right? They happened in Algeria against the French, the anti-colonial action against the French in Algeria. And the most effective way of ensuring that enemy combatants, civilian casualties don't occur is by ending occupations. Okay? That's it. Look at their logs, funky bastard. You defend your lefty friends who defend Hamas, though. Can you not say Hamas is a terrorist group? This guy's a dumbass for sure. Why are we noticing less Latino votes? What would the ban accomplish? Aren't you the same guy that said you do not call cops? Oh, God. This guy is... Oh, my God. Oh, okay, I got it. This is like... I know where this guy's coming from. Oh, he's in here specifically to clip my response so he can fucking post it on a subreddit and be like, look, this guy loves Hamas, actually. No, he's not an H3 member. No, H3 member says, aren't you the same guy who said you do not call the cops in 2020? Come on, brother. These are gripes that people are fighting for 4 years now. It's like the most pathetic state of existence. Come on. It's also not true. It's a classic clip chimp that people have ran with for 4 years now. Imagine fighting the demons in your head for 4 fucking years, brother man. Jesus Christ. Oof. Dad. One day you'll get better. I promise.
7,000 people, it says, have died since October the 7th. And a warning, there are some distressing scenes from the start in Jonathan Rugman's report.
This was southern Gaza this morning in the aftermath of an Israeli airstrike. It was reported that at least 15 Palestinians were killed. Few wars are better documented than this one, not least because the conflict has lasted for decades. But Gaza's health ministry, which issues the figures, is controlled by Hamas. And the Israelis have told President Biden that the overall death toll of over 7,000 Palestinians is not to be believed.
What they say to me is I have no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure...
This was fucking gross. I covered this extensively this morning. I told you exactly why it's fucking gross. I told you why it's completely unacceptable to say such a thing. And I showed you that the State Department itself has used these numbers. These numbers have always been very reliable. It's fucking annoying and completely and utterly unacceptable for Brandon to come out and say that these numbers are unreliable. They've never been unreliable. It's ridiculous.
Innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging a war. But I have no confidence in the number that the Palestinians are using.
No incident has proved more controversial than this. Hundreds were reported killed at the Al-Ali hospital last week. Hamas says it was an Israeli airstrike, but the Americans, British, Canadians and French say a malfunctioning Palestinian rocket was most likely to blame. And Israel also queries the number of dead.
I see remains of fire. What I don't see is bodies. If 500 people were indeed killed here, or 471, which is the latest update from the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health in Gaza, where were they here?
American intelligence reckons between 100 and 300 died. Still,
that's crazy. Oh my God. The people that make these counts are fucking doctors, man. They're not terrorists. Oh my God. The people, also the American count is 100 to 300. That's interesting. I thought it was only 50. What happened? Now they're saying 100 to 300. Let me explain something to you. Okay? The people that are counting the dead are doctors. They're doctors. They're not Hamas. They're doctors. The Gazan Health Ministry is a civilian operation. It's like assuming that the worst debate, bro, the numbers are always undercounted. Yeah, it's the unholy debate. It's like how many babies were actually murdered debate when we're continuously murdering babies is like up there with defensive CP. You know what I mean? Anyway, it is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The Canadian meme, fucking military totally parroted the Israeli talking points. Yeah, so did the American ones. And the New York Times basically eviscerated their counterclaims in
its
entirety.
A terrible toll. But the Italians have gone with a far lower figure than that.
We need to avoid the negative impact of propaganda, because that missile that was said to have caused 500 deaths, in reality, it was around 50.
The hospital incident resulted in unusually large protests here in Jordan, and an Arab summit with President Biden was cancelled. But despite the controversy, the UN still uses the Gaza Health Ministry's casualty figures, as has the US State Department in the recent past.
Our review of what the Ministry of Health figures are that they're generally reliable. When we've done our own independent investigations on particular strikes.
Oh no, dog. You look kind of fucking Arab to me. I don't know. Seems like you might be Hamas. You know what I mean? Human Rights Watch, more like Hamas Rights Watch. Yeah, I'm thinking you don't want Israel finding the coordinates to your home. I'm thinking maybe there's a rocket. I'm just saying, Omar? The idea that every single person inside the Gaza Health Ministry is part of Hamas is insane. No, like, they can be. And some are. But there's an entire... It's like thinking that every single fucking person that works at the National Institute of Health or works at the CDC is like Stanley McChrystal, okay? That's the fucking insane part. Like, that's the issue. Is saying every DOJ person is a damn Biden supporter. There's a thing called career employees in the case of Gaza, also doctors and nurses. Yeah, it's even more than that. It's like, yeah, everyone at the CDC is Dick Cheney, so I don't listen to anything they ever say. I don't get the reference. Sorry. Okay, Dick Cheney, George W. Bush. Everyone that works at the fucking CDC is actually Dick Cheney himself. Okay? We can't trust those numbers. And that's funny because, like, that's what COVID deniers say. COVID deniers are like, well, technically, you know, I can't trust the CDC numbers because, you know, they want these vaccines. Fauci wants these vaccines to be implemented. So, like, you can't trust those numbers. And it's like, that's an insane thing that people push. And every one of these fucking liberals understands that that's an insane thing. But they do it when it comes to Israel's psychotic, like, anti-Palestinian position.
We have found no major discrepancies in the data, that they've generally been consistent. The reason for that is methodologically, the Ministry of Health has access to data from hospitals and morgues that simply isn't available to other collectors of data.
In 2000,
I'm telling you, dude, that number is an undercount. 7,000 is an undercount. There's 2,000 people that are under the rubble right now. Okay? There's so many more people under the rubble. Like, they don't have electricity. They're rationing for fucking 2 weeks now.
2018, we filmed the last major attempt to breach the Gaza border fence, in which hundreds of Palestinians were shot by Israeli snipers.
There have been 29 major cases.
A British NHS surgeon we met at a Gaza hospital said the casualty numbers were logged by hospital administrators and that when he reviewed them, he found no evidence of exaggeration.
Who knows whether they have been massaging the figures. All I can say is that in our experience, in similar circumstances, and with our effort at independent verification, we found that we were in broad agreement. Our estimates were in broad agreement with the ministry figures.
This was the appalling scene at a hospital in northern Gaza last night. They say that truth is always the first casualty of war, but given the scale of Israel's bombardment, it's perhaps remarkable that casualties...
It's giving the article that reads, Israel demands correction from Bernie Sanders. Yeah, that article is a fucking classic. Hold on. Your numbers are wrong, and it's even worse than that, by the way. The numbers that you brought up are worse. Fact check, Israel demanded Sanders correct Palestinian child death claim. The death claim that Bernie Sanders put forward was that that it killed more. Sanders said, I don't forget what it I don't remember what Sanders said, but Israel corrected Sanders and said they only killed 532 Palestinian children. In a 2016 interview with the New York Daily News editorial board, Sanders said he recollected that 10,000 innocent people were killed in Gaza in 2014, although admitting that he doesn't remember the figures. I don't have it in my number. I don't have it in my number, but I think it's over 10,000. Later in the interview, he was corrected by a New York Daily News editorial board, and it was 10,000 wounded, and it was about 2,300 he believed to be killed. But this article title is fucking awesome.
Figures are still being compiled at all.
Onion article, don't eat the onion, Hassan. That is not an Onion article. That's a real article. Anyway, much respect to Channel 4. They've done a really good job. Oh, here.
Regret involvement with the violence?
No, not the slightest. No. I've been asked that quite a few times by especially Americans. And I go to them, what would you have done in the 1980s if the Russians had landed? Do I regret? Absolutely not. I think I've been very instrumental in bringing about major societal change. We considered it a war, an anti-colonial war. So, no regrets. I regret being in prison. I regret the loss of life. I regret the hurt, all that type of stuff. I'm not an insane maniacal whatever killer or whatever it is. We were sentenced under terrorism legislation. I didn't consider myself a terrorist. It might sound a bit, I don't know, cheeky of me to say to you, but what would your views be to the French who resisted the German occupation?
What would mine be?
Yeah.
They would, I mean, I would obviously say, yeah, that it's you'd be fighting and occupying.
So would you then say to the French in 1946, do you regret killing those Germans? I mean, that's, and sounds aggressive of me to say it, but that's the way I feel. No, absolutely justified. Why should I have a foreign soldier in my country? If you think other people aren't paid to get rid of them, what's your nationality again?
Well, I'm English.
Yeah, you're English. Yeah. I mean, you know, you didn't let the Germans come over. Oh, Churchill held them back on the beaches. To me, it's a no-brainer. But I understand you asking the questions. My regrets are that life had to be taken. Because I'm a father, grandfather, husband, brother. I'm an okay fella. I just was a member of the IRA.
They're white, so it's different. You know what I mean? It's different because they're white. They're white because they're different. And they're different because they're white. Now, a lot of people don't know that this is like also, you know, many people have no fucking clue what happened. It's so close to our understanding of history. This is like not that long ago. The fucking troubles were not that long ago. This is part of the reason why the Irish are very much in support of Palestinian liberation.
A giant wall cuts through an ordinary neighborhood in Belfast, 25 feet high. On one side, a Catholic population. On the other, a Protestant one.
Boo.
But this wall isn't just here because of religious differences.
Boo.
It's here because people on this side of it want Northern Ireland to remain part of the UK. And people on this side want it to be part of a united Ireland. It's called a peace wall, and there are many like it, carving Belfast up, separating neighbourhoods that were once at war with each other. Because from 1968 to 1998, this was home to some of the most dangerous armed paramilitaries in the world.
Meanwhile, in Northern Ireland itself, the bombings were setting new records in horror, and an IRA explosives expert received a life sentence for murder.
One you might have heard of, the Irish Republican Army, or IRA, which spent 30 years fighting for a united Ireland. The conflict was called the Troubles, and would see over 3,700 people.
Lord Louis Mountbatten, captain of HMS Kelly, admiral of the fleet, viceroy of India, hero of Burma, murdered by the IRA, 15 soldiers massacred. Hero of Burma. It was a little spicy, dude. Little spicy.
Killed and almost
Viceroy of India.
We spoke to two men who fought on opposing sides. Michael, who joined the IRA in the 70s, and Billy, who joined the Ulster Volunteer Force, or UVF, to fight.
Yeah, there you go, dude. It's just like, one guy is objectively in the right here, okay?
Against the IRA.
I'm Michael Culbert. I was in prison for almost 16 years. I was a life sentence prisoner. I was charged with various IRA-related activities, including killing members of the British forces.
My name's Billy.
By the way, all you need to do is look at the the Sons of Ulster wall. Where is it? There's here it is. There you go. Here. If you want to understand if you want to understand something about the Northern Irish perspective, okay? Understand that they have historically always ridden for the wrong side of every conflict. Like, I mean, here. There's more here. This is a little bit clearer. The Ulster Dixie, not Irish, but I live in Ireland. Unionists in the North are some of the biggest reactionaries, nutjobs, anti-immigration, Brexit on Twitter. Oh, fucking exploded that thing, dude. Fuck. Woo. Let's go.
Hutchison. I'm a former loyalist prisoner. I was in prison from 1974 to 1990. I was in for murder.
But before we get into that, you need to know about two groups that populate Northern Ireland. Irish nationalists, or Republicans, are those who want the unification of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. They tend to be Catholics. British Unionists, or Loyalists, want Northern Ireland to remain part of the UK, and they tend to be Protestants. So what's behind this divide? How does it link to religion? And why is Northern Ireland part of the UK? To find that out, we'll need to cover a bit of history. From the 1100s, Britain was attempting to colonise Ireland, and it faced some of the strongest resistance in the northeast, in an area called Ulster. So the British decided they needed to anglicise the region, basically make it more English. And in 1609, they began confiscating land from native Irish residents to give to loyal settlers, who were mostly Protestants from Scotland and northern England.
You fucking hearing something there, dude? Some settlements happening?
If settlers owned the land, they'd have more control over Ulster. This period was called the Plantation of Ulster. Fast forward to the 1900s, long after Britain had colonised Ireland. The vast majority of people here were Irish Catholics and were heavily discriminated against by Protestant British rulers. In a rejection of British rule in Ireland, the 1918 elections saw an Irish nationalist party that was pushing for independence, called Sinn Féin, win 91% of the seats outside of Ulster. But in Ulster, all those settlers that were given land hundreds of years ago had had families, and over the centuries, their population grew. It was now the only region of Ireland where Protestant Unionists in favour of British rule were in the majority, winning 4 out of 9 of the counties there. After those elections, rather than taking their seats in Parliament, Sinn Féin decided to form their own separate government and proclaim a new Irish Republic.
Catholics are POC, person of Catholicism. Yes, people of Catholic faith. Yeah.
And they'd formed their own army. This was the birth of the original IRA. So when Britain tried to step in, they fought a war for independence against the UK. To try and put a stop to the fighting, Britain passed the Home Rule Act, which partitioned Ireland into Northern and Southern Ireland. The goal was to keep Ireland in the UK, but...
Bro, they can't let it go. You know what I mean? They're just like, they will never, they never want to pull out. They're just like, come on, let's just keep it a little bit. Come on, please.
Create 2 Irish governments, one unionist one in the north and an Irish nationalist one in the south. But this division was rejected by most Irish citizens, and the fighting only stopped when a ceasefire was agreed and the Anglo-Irish Treaty was signed. This agreement created a new country, the Irish Free State, but kept it as part of the British Empire. But this treaty had an opt-out clause for Northern Ireland, and with its unionist majority, within 2 days of the treaty coming into effect, Northern Ireland had declared it would separate from the Irish Free State and rejoin the UK. All this created a huge divide in Irish society and within the IRA. between those that were pro-treaty and willing to let Northern Ireland go in return for what they saw as a stepping stone towards total independence from Britain, and those against it, that wanted a united Ireland, independent from the UK. So there was a civil war immediately after the War for Independence, this time between those two groups. The IRA fought against the treaty, but the pro-treaty side, supported by the British, won. And so Ireland remained partitioned as it is today. But that left a region that was still home to a lot of Catholic Irish nationalists inside the UK, living alongside Protestant British Unionists. And so the problems were far from solved.
You've no concept of the awfulness of what Ireland went through. I mean, we had this thing called the plantation and the settlers in Ireland and the planters in Ireland. That's code talk for theft, for eviction of people from their homes. How did people live? They starved to death. So, I mean, we were subject to quite horrendous treatment by the Big Island. I think ruling one country should be enough for any country. The British government has set up a false state here in the north of Ireland. So I don't use the term the UK, because the UK would mean legitimising the existence of the northern state. If I was talking about the Big Island, I would talk about Britain, because I see this part of Ireland as being Ireland. But the actual use of the word the UK acknowledges the existence of the state.
If you go to Belfast, stated propagandas and tennis, billboards and pictures, ISIS equals IRA. Wait, really? Still?
And to a degree to a Republican. That's what the conflict was about. By the way, do not think for 1 minute that people like me are wanting the north of Ireland to join with the south of Ireland. We're wanting new Ireland, because we see the southern state has been quite corrupt. Do I want to get into a state where you have the same two ruling parties that has ruled corruptly under the auspices of the Catholic Church for 100 years? I don't think so. I don't think so. That's not what I spent 16 years in prison for or was engaged in military activity about. Oh no. We want a new start for the people on the island of Ireland.
We're politically and culturally British. You know, I've lived here all my life. We can talk about 600 years, we can talk about 300 years, but this is 100 years. Like, if there was United Ireland here, people here would be persecuted, people would be murdered. So if you think it's bad in Iraq or Iran, it'll be 1,000 times worse here.
What? Yo. He said it's 1,000 times worse here than Iraq or Iran? Bro, 1 million by the most conservative estimation. What the fuck? That's crazy. Yeah. I like that. He said it's worse. He said the IRA is worse than ISIS. 1 billion Northern Irish, British dead in Northern Ireland.
They may not throw LGBT people off the roof, but they'll certainly shoot and kill and persecute loyalists. And Republicans would be behind that.
How did you actually come to be involved in the IRA in the first place?
Look, I was a young man in the 1960s. England was getting thrown out of their colonies all over the world. Our struggle was an anti-colonial struggle. So the tactics which they used in Africa or the Middle East, India, it's no different.
To understand why someone would join a group like the IRA or UVF and be willing to commit acts of violence in their name, you have to know a bit about Northern Ireland in the 1960s and 70s. Discrimination against Irish Catholics was rampant. Most large businesses were run by Protestant unionists, who gave preference to Protestant employees or simply refused to hire Catholics. The courts and police forces were overwhelmingly Protestant and treated Protestants more favourably. And then there was the housing. But this was more than just a place to live. You only had the right to vote in local elections here if you or your spouse owned property.
He said he's right. At least we have sunlight and great weather in Iraq.
Not only were the wealthier Protestants more likely to own property than Catholics, but council homes were often allocated by Protestant local councillors to Protestant families, who would then vote to keep them in power.
Allocation of a vote depended on you having a house, and having a house depended on who got elected, because the councils allocated housing. there's a circle here and you had to break the circle. So what we were pushing for was the one person, one vote. You had some people, if they were big property owners, they could own 10 houses to 10 votes. Whereas you could have 2 families living in the house with a couple of adults in each family and there was no vote.
Even though the Civil War had ended decades ago, the IRA hadn't actually gone. And against the backdrop of a growing civil rights movement, it was recruiting again. So the British government, to try and weaken the IRA, introduced a new law, giving them the ability to imprison people without trial. That process was called internment.
There are now something like...
Another thing that the British love, internment camps. Partitioning and internments is a classic Angloid attitude. It's just like, these are things in the Angloid arsenal. They deploy it so willingly.
12,000 people held in camps like this throughout Northern Ireland since the British government began its controversial policy of internment 3 months ago.
The internment...
Controversial. Chat. This is... Let me explain something to you, okay? We are now 20 plus years out from World War II, okay? Almost 30 years out from World War II. Television exists at this point. Many of your mothers and fathers are alive at this point. Like, they are watching this happen on their TVs. And the television man is saying the internment policy is controversial. I feel like just simply saying that it's controversial is undermining it a little bit. You know what I mean? Just something to consider when you look at the media even back then.
Was brought in August 1971. I mean, what do you say about a government which has to bring in internment? There's something wrong somewhere. Because the vast majority of the people they interned were people who they perceived as being anti-state, but they were wrong.
I gotta pee.
Or they were anti-state, but not violently anti-state.
As the tension simmered, there were 2 camps.
So what you had was a totally reform movement for electoral changes with the civil rights movement, and yet always the little Bernie bit, which was revolution. There's a history of rebellion against British rule. It's always there, and nearly every about 20, 30 years, there's an attempted revolt. The IRA had tried to lift their military campaign in the late 1960s. It wasn't overly working.
While the IRA was trying to make a comeback, initially, most people supported the peaceful reformists. But then came a protest on the 30th of January, 1972.
On the last Sunday in January, Catholic civil rights marchers defied a government ban on parades and came into violent conflict with British troops in the centre of Londonderry.
15,000 Irish people defied a ban on public gatherings and marched against the internment law. Soldiers made arrests, used tear gas and rubber bullets, while protesters threw stones. And at 4:10 p.m, British soldiers began firing live rounds at the crowd on what would come to be known as Bloody Sunday.
1972, you had a civil rights march in Derry, which I'm sure you've heard of, Bloody Sunday, where 13 people were shot dead. Reform had to be put in the bin, had to be put aside, and to a degree, revolution took over. And I would have been one of the thousands of young men then and women who decided, nah, I'm not going to take any more of this.
And so I ask our people at this difficult and trying time to remain calm.
Within the space of half an hour in the middle of the afternoon...
Rock throwing met with gunfire. Sounds familiar. Yeah, also unjustifiable state actions met with mostly civil disobedience, which then turns up when you have gunfire being utilized against a crowd of protesters.
No fewer than 20 large bombs exploded in various parts of the city.
This was a tipping point. After Bloody Sunday, support for armed revolution surged. The IRA was back with a vengeance and would undertake a 30-year fight against British and Unionist forces, becoming one of the most feared and infamous paramilitaries in the world.
That the British government during the 1970s It did make an effort to bring about major reform here, but the ball was already then rolling down the hill. Right? The IRA campaign was underway. Thousands of people had joined into the IRA, so it was too late. Eventually, Belfast particularly became this gated community.
My grandparents are Irish and actually lived through this. They said the worst part of internment was hourly breaks to listen to British advertisement. They still hold I don't know why I'm speaking like this. What's happening, dude? It literally, it broke my fucking brain. As soon as I hear a guy talk from Ireland, immediately I start doing that British advertisement. You know, in my heart of hearts, I'm Irish as well, especially at the top of the hour when there's a 3-minute ad break.
I was born on a Dublin street where the loyal drums did beat. The loving English feet that walked all over us.
I was already gonna do it, Chatter. You fucking bastard. I was already getting it ready, you fucking bastard. Probably the greatest fucking ad break segue of all time. At the top of the hour is a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime, you fucking bastard. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here is the 3-minute ad break now.
What are the sneers and jeers that you loudly let us hear when our leaders of 16 were executed?
Anyway, let's continue.
You weren't able to approach the city centre except you had to go through gates and be searched because of the IRA bombings.
At this stage, the forces they faced were the 8,500 strong Royal Ulster Constabulary, or RUC, which was the mostly Protestant police force in Northern Ireland, and the 21,000 British troops deployed to Northern Ireland to support the RUC under Operation Banner. That operation would last 38 years, making it the longest continuous military deployment in British history.
In areas like this, there was a lot of British forces killed. It was the conflict was mostly contained within working class nationalist stroke Republican areas. What they then had was the growth of reactionary forces then being formulated. Those reactionary forces would have been on the pro-union side, who got their logic from attacking nationalist stroke Republican communities with this vague concept of, well, if we kill enough people in that area, those people will be telling Republicans to stop attacking forces.
I made the choices in the organisation, but there were reasons why I joined it. 100 yards from here, there was a place called the Balmore Showroom, and it was blown up. There was an 18-month-old baby killed in it. There was a boy killed in it. I didn't know at the time of the bomb, but I knew afterwards that I knew the fella. There was a pub that was blown up called the 4-Step Inn, and 2 pensioners who everybody in the chamber knew because they were characters, and everybody knew them, but the IRA blew that up. Those are the 2 things that were impacting me most because they were very local and I knew people. The IRA were attacking these communities and murdering people, planting bombs, and nobody was doing anything about it. You know, British government wasn't doing anything. The police's hands were tied, and you had to make a decision then.
Yeah, this guy was like, this was this guy's like moment where he's like, totally unprovoked, totally and utterly unprovoked. Where'd it come from? Nobody knows. I mean, what? The British were simply doing internment. 1,000 years of colonial violence. Totally unprovoked, though. The pub. Do you condemn the IRA?
I probably made a decision when I was 15 that we needed to do something about it.
Yeah.
That's how I got involved.
He said the British and the Unionists had a right to defend themselves.
In all the fighting, there were over 10,000 bombings and almost 37,000 shootings. Over 3,700 people were.
The more I learn about conflicts around the world, the more I come into the conclusion that the British Empire is the root of all evil in the modern world, and a continuation of that is the American Empire. So yes, you're right.
Were killed and almost 50,000 injured. In Britain, the conflict came to be called the Troubles. But some of those who were involved in it push back on that name.
The trouble is it's a weak term. We call it the conflict, right? Which is a softish term. Others, friends of mine, will call it the war, because it was a guerrilla war. Guerrilla war in the streets, in the countryside. In England, we were also active in.
Oh, dude, remember when I went here? I saw it. I just don't know how you can be so cucked as to be a Northern Irish British Unionist, because it's like I don't know if you guys remember, I was doing a IRL stream with Jack Manifold, and we went there. This is where the IRA almost assassinated British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, which is unfortunate that they missed, but that was the only problem with the IRA, is that they missed. So close. Like this guy, who? IRA Pepe Spit. Northern Ireland is still a part of Britain, too based. Not everything is police fault. Nuke unlocked soon. Pepe Spit, Putin bot. TERFs, Pepe Spit. Just say no. Average labor voter in 2023. I don't know if this guy is an average labor voter. I think this guy is just like a regular old neoliberal who still also likes me as well, but not too much. 2 states, Taiwan and China. BRICS countries, I can't. He thinks it's an RPG. Copium. Surely they would hold elections. Not as good as a one-state solution, but at least this chance is a chance working, so we have to support it. Yeah, he's like... Anyway, let's continue.
We're active in Europe. There was actually a British military man was shot dead in Australia by the IRA. So, I mean, we consider it a war. This trouble gives it an inference of being an internal sort of civilian throwing stones at each other. So, no. If you'd have seen this area back, you would not believe, with armoured cars and the military personnel in it. You just wouldn't believe it.
Do you regret involvement with the violence?
No, not the slightest. No. I've been asked that quite a few times by especially Americans. And I go to them, what would you have done in the 1980s if the Russians had landed? Do I regret? Absolutely not. I think I've been very instrumental in bringing about major societal change. We considered it a war, an anti-colonial war. So, no regrets. I regret being in prison. I regret the loss of life. I regret the hurt, all that type of stuff. And
it's been hundreds of years, but white people in my country, New Zealand, still identify with Scotland and hate the English because of it. Bro, you should wait. They identify with Scotland and hate the English because of it, but like if you ask the Scottish, I mean, some also hate the English, but there's plenty of Scots that were willing dogs to the English as well. You know what I mean? Like, like it's not as clear cut, I would say, as the Irish and their understandable hatred for the English. A lot of Scottish people hate the English, obviously. However, you know, there's still a decent amount. Kiwis are far from the Irish. Scottish people make up a disproportionate part of the UK security forces.
Not an insane, maniacal, whatever, killer or whatever it is. We were sentenced under terrorism legislation. I didn't consider myself a terrorist. It might sound a bit, I don't know, cheeky of me to say to you, but what would your views be to the French who resisted the German occupation?
What would mine be?
Yeah.
They would. I mean, I would obviously say, yeah, that it's you'd be fighting and occupying.
So would you then say to the French in 1946, do you regret killing those Germans? I mean, that's and sounds aggressive by me to say it, but that's the way I feel. No, absolutely justified. Why should I have a foreign soldier in my country? If you think other people aren't entitled to get rid of them, what's your nationality again?
Well, I'm English.
Yeah, you're English. Yeah. I mean, you know, you did.
I'm a Brit and I traveled all around Ireland, going around the country on a bike, staying in hostels. The people I met in the north had such hate for the Republic of Ireland. It's not even entirely about wanting to be a part of the UK. It's just pure anger from the baggage of all these terrible events. Also, the ones who want to stay part of the UK have it all set up exactly how they want it and don't want to hand over that power/status. It's just anti-Irish resentment.
Let the Germans come over. Oh, Churchill held them back on the beaches. To me, it's a no-brainer. But I understand you asking the questions. My regrets are that life had to be taken. Because I'm a father, grandfather, husband, brother. I'm an okay fella. I just was a member of the IRA.
This guy is so chill.
I don't regret it, no. I don't regret being involved in the violence, but I regret every life that was taken and my action I took, and I don't regret it. And, I was denied ever, as far as I'm concerned. I had
this guy, not chill.
But I don't make excuses about it. I try to find reasons. But what I don't want to do is to condemn another generation of young people in this society to any type of war. I don't think circumstances are the circumstances that I was growing up in. And I think that people need to allow us to try to find a political solution.
The first of those political solutions and the transition from violence to politics came on the 10th of April 1998, in the form of the Good Friday Agreement.
After 2 years,
my family immigrated to the U.S. to work and send money back home to Ireland to help start the new government, became gun runners in Colorado. That sounds fucking sick.
years of talks, and after a generation of bloodshed, an agreement that unites loyalist and Republican, unionist and nationalist leaders.
Those who believe in a united Ireland can make that case now by persuasion, not violence or threats.
Well, I look forward equally to a new era of friendship and reconciliation between unionists and nationalists.
The agreement outlined over 30 pages of terms that would put an end to the fighting in Northern Ireland.
Tony
It
Blair,
acknowledged
Pepe
that
spit.
the majority of people here wanted to remain part of the UK, but that a substantial portion of the population wanted a united Ireland. It was put to two referendums, one in Northern Ireland and one in the Republic. Turnout in Northern Ireland was 81%, and this is the moment the people of Northern Ireland learned the results.
Yes, 71.12%.
In the Republic, turnout was lower, but 94% voted in favour of the agreement. So after 30 years of fighting and over 3,500 deaths, peace at last. No more car bombs, no more pub shootings, no more sectarian killings. And the paramilitaries agreed to give up a lot of their weapons. 9 years later, Operation Banner came to an end, and British forces were withdrawn from Northern Ireland. But a lot of people outside of Northern Ireland seem to think that this solved the issue entirely. But what it really did was secure peace for now and leave the question of Northern Ireland's place in the UK open-ended. It stated that Northern Ireland...
Aren't also a lot of Northern Irish, at least partially English ancestry? Surely that has nothing to do with it. I mean, don't get me started on this shit, okay? It's all the same. Ridiculous.
And would remain part of the UK until a majority of people in both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland wanted unification. If unification ever does have majority support, it says there should be a referendum. It wasn't the united Ireland that Republicans wanted, and it wasn't a guarantee that Northern Ireland would be part of the UK forever, but the majority of people were okay with this middle ground if it meant the violence would stop. This political solution was much easier when the UK was in the EU. The land borders were invisible, and that meant things were flexible. People could act as though there was or wasn't a border depending on their identity. But then...
I remember this.
When the UK voted to leave the EU in 2016, it changed everything. Because this is the UK's only land border with an EU country. And Brexit risked creating a hard border here, with customs checks and security posts.
I remember
Anywhere
covering
else,
this
and
exact
that might
detail
be
of Brexit.
acceptable, but here it threatens the agreement that put an end to 3 decades of bloodshed, because it puts a barrier between Northern Ireland and the Republic, something thousands of Irish Republicans fought against. So, to try and get around that, initially the UK and EU agreed on the Northern Ireland Protocol, which moved this border, basically creating a customs barrier in the sea between Northern Ireland and Britain, and leaving Northern Ireland inside the EU single market. For loyalists, though, this threatened their place in the UK, and was likely to draw Northern Ireland and the Republic closer together, while distancing it from Britain.
From the Unionist loyalist perspective, they see their connection with Britain definitely waning. their protests about the Brexit. They wanted Brexit.
That's the best part. Oh. While the majority of unionists supported Brexit, Billy Hutchinson
They
did not.
supported this very English nationalist perspective to leave Europe, which I think is very, very dangerous.
So we've got the protocols now. You know, that people call an Irish sea border. I believe that it abuses my rights. We need unfettered access between here and the rest of the United Kingdom. The border is a Killeen, you probably went through it. You know, it's been there for 100 years. The Irish government and all of the nationalist and Republican parties all said if there's a border there, that there would be Republican attacks on it. So they moved it. We can't live under threat from Republicans.
But since then, British politics has been kind of...
I'm not going to lie, they deserve every bit of fucking frustration that they experience here, okay? You do. You sit there and you kiss the hands and feet of the British. They're going to fuck you, okay? They're going to fuck themselves, which they did, and they're going to fuck you too, and it's your fault.
Chaotic.
Boris Johnson is going to step down.
My friends, in politics, no one is remotely indispensable. I want you to know how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world.
Liz Truss has been elected leader of Britain's Conservative Party.
God, England has been taking so many unimaginable L's, dude. Like, just fucking a sequence of L after L after L. Wow.
Will become the UK's next Prime Minister.
For the second time this year, our Prime Minister has resigned.
I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected. I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
Rishi Sunak is set to become Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
I am humbled and honoured to be elected as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party.
3 Prime Ministers in 1 year obviously leads to some changes. And so, out with the Northern Ireland Protocol, in with the Windsor Framework.
27 pages, 13,000 words. Now, it's a deal that Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, or even Theresa May could not strike.
The new plan is to create 2 separate customs lanes. A green lane for goods moving between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, and a red lane for those moving between the UK and EU. Goods in the green lane aren't subject to EU checks, which should make the Irish sea border much less noticeable, meaning unionists can breathe a sigh of relief. But it's worth keeping in mind that the Windsor Framework hasn't actually been implemented yet, and how well it'll actually work in practice is an open question. So while peace has been achieved and bullets are no longer whizzing overhead, the tension is still very much there, and was one of the biggest sticking points in EU-UK Brexit negotiations. On the ground, though, today that tension is most visible in Northern Ireland's segregated neighbourhoods, where Protestants live on one side of a peace wall and Catholics on another. Within moments of entering any of these areas, it's obvious which side of the divide the people that live there are on. In Belfast, Catholic Republican strongholds like Falls Road and Protestant Unionist ones like
We seek nothing but the elementary right implanted in every man, the right that if you're attacked, to defend yourself.
the Shankill are home to countless murals expressing loyalist or Republican allegiance that cover the sides of buildings. And Irish or British flags dot the streets, along with memorials marking either IRA or British Unionist attacks. The Northern Irish government aimed to remove all peace walls here by 2023, but they've missed that target. There's still 20 miles of the structures left in Northern Ireland, mostly in Belfast, and many people have them running straight through their back gardens.
What is it like having a peace line in your back garden?
Darkens the house down terribly, but I suppose we feel safe at the same time. Well, I think everybody's glad that they're here, but I suppose it would be a wee bit better if we could get a wee bit more natural light in, you know, have sort of corrugated shields the whole way down rather than the big green things in the end. So the whole back of my house be completely dark.
I'm old enough, right, to remember when there was no peace walls. But when I walked down Conway Street and I crossed the road, right away I knew where it was. I was in a Catholic area. I mean, you don't drive through a village or a town in Northern Ireland without knowing what it is. So from that point of view, we've always had peace walls in our heads. And when you go to a peace wall, you know, you're going, all these people on the other side must be bad, that's why they've got that wall there. So you've got two factions on each side, and one thinks all the Prods are bad, and one thinks all the Catholics are bad. You know, it's in people's heads, and we've never got rid of it, you know. So you can't take them down until people's got a peace of mind, and we don't have that.
It's still quite segregated, but that's what people are used to in their living. It'd be nice to have people living all in a broadly mixed society, but we have maybe several hundred years of separated living. It's customary, but that tends to be in the working class areas. You don't get major issues in middle class or upper class areas, but you're right, in working class areas there's still major segregation.
Belfast is the most starkly divided city I've ever visited. For one side, this is a fight for Irish freedom. For the other, it's the risk of being dragged into a country they don't want to be a part of. There isn't really much room for compromise beyond what's already been achieved, and both sides have taken up arms for their respective causes before. But regardless of the cause, civilians were often the victims.
Legit question, what is the separation based on here? The English settled settled almost 1,000 years ago, and then basically, had colonized the entire land, and the areas that they settled most aggressively, they decided, or 400 years ago, sorry. And then the areas that they settled most aggressively, they maintained, they were Protestants, Irish people are Catholic, and so they, parts of Northern Ireland is still technically a part of England, a part of the United Kingdom, okay? And they see themselves as spicy English. They're cucks. They're cucks to the royalist cucks.
54% of those killed in the conflict and 68% of those injured were civilians, sometimes targeted just for being Catholic.
Well, also 900 plus years ago, you weren't wrong. The Norman nobility of England colonized Ireland as well. Yes, technically it does go back, 1,000 years. So basically, that's it. I don't know how else to describe it. I feel like I've described it already. That they're still desperately trying to maintain a connection to the United Kingdom.
Or Protestant. Republican paramilitaries killed 2,057 people, and over a third of their victims were civilians. Loyalist paramilitaries killed fewer people, 1,027, but 85% of their victims were civilians. The British Army also killed 188 civilians, mostly Catholics, and the RUC killed 28. So while it's important to listen to those who were directly involved in the conflict to make sure history doesn't repeat itself,
latest polls show a majority for unification among young people in Northern Ireland. Why would people want to be a part of the UK? Why would we want to be a part of the UK? Young people will probably soon deliver a united Ireland. So I've heard this, but as far as I understand, they will never let this happen, right? I know that originally it was going to be up to a referendum, but think about it this way. A similar attitude exists in Scotland as well, and Scotland is established as a state comprised of Scottish people who have a national identity as Scottish people, and even then, it's not able to leave. It's very different comparing Ireland to Scotland, to be honest. But here we have this sovereign Irish government that can also press for it, unlike in Scotland. True. Demographics favor eventual reunification in Northern Ireland. Catholics be breeding. It would be so funny if Star Trek was right about Ireland reunification in 2024. It's not like Scotland at all because the UK government can't block it. I know, but I feel like the North Irish government will do everything in its power to stop it from happening and try to pull UK back in. I don't know. I don't know. Polls and surveys have consistently demonstrated the Griffified generation are more than likely to vote for a united Ireland, far more likely to identify as Irish or Northern Irish, and that the vast majority do not align themselves with unionist ideology, all of which suggests pro-union parties are likely to face an uphill battle in convincing them that Northern Ireland's place is in the UK. Anyway, economically, United Ireland's a bad idea. Better to stay in the UK, to be honest. Why? All right, let's continue. Let's finish this.
We also need to remember the people that suffered as a result of their actions. Michael and Billy didn't go into much detail on the specific charges they were sentenced for, but Billy's case is a little easier to find online. He was sentenced to life for his role in the murder of 2 civilian Catholic men, Michael Lauren and Edward Morgan, who were not involved with the paramilitaries. I didn't find much about Michael's case, but he was involved in the killings of members of the British forces, and a book called Anatomy of a Killing suggests that he gave the order to kill Miller McAllister, a police photographer for the RUC who was shot in front of his children. With so many dead and injured, the bitterness here runs deep, and the trauma left in the wake of the conflict will be felt for decades to come. As things stand today, occasionally violence does flare up. There are still clashes between Protestant groups like the Orange Order and Irish Republicans and Catholics. And some splinter groups of the paramilitaries, like the Continuity IRA, are still armed.
Unfortunately, there's a small core within our nationalist areas who claim to be Republican activists but don't attack the state, but do have weaponry and say that they're against the peace process. That's up to the police to do the job, and our communities will be better off without those people. But there's an awful lot of people within loyalist areas who claim their labels as loyalist activists, who are gangsters, criminals, drug dealers, etc. So a lot of them have a lot of negative sway in their areas.
Despite those groups, the majority of people who are actually involved in the conflict have committed to the peace process and turned to dialogue. Michael now runs Kostya, an organisation that provides assistance to Republican ex-prisoners, while Billy is the leader of the Progressive Unionist Party. But even so, it's difficult to know exactly what the future holds in Northern Ireland, especially now that Brexit has shaken the foundations of the Good Friday Agreement. Whatever the outcome, one side is bound to feel like they're losing, and hopefully now you'll understand why.
It was the first time the Irish Nationalist Party was the largest party in Northern Ireland. In 2023 local elections, parties favoring a united Ireland outpolled unionist parties by 4%. These were historic wins for the Irish Republicans and brought a united Ireland one step closer. That's nice. The secret Welsh nationalist paramilitary, Wales's most notorious activist. We have Sean Fain in the US. It's the closest you're going to get. You find lots of us hate British. Yeah, I wonder why. It's interesting. Why do so many people hate... we have Sean Fain, who is the president, who is my president. Nothing but respect for my president. Baldy's party never polled higher than 1.5%. Nice. Ay, ay, ay. Tom, what are the odds that things aren't as hellish tomorrow? I don't know. I visited Wales literally earlier this month and accidentally upset a local by telling them I'd never been to the UK before. She said, "You're not in the UK, you're in Wales." I just tested positive for COVID from the con. Feels bad, man. I mean, I've been kind of sick too, but to be fair, I'm getting off of the sickness. And also on top of that, I don't feel as though I have COVID. And on top of that, what was I going to say? I didn't actually link up with a lot of people. The signature flaw of far-left activist groups on everything from climate change to Palestine to housing policy is refusing to engage in any kind of specific way with how anything is supposed to happen beyond mystifications about political will. I hate this fucking conversation because, like, no, there is a way, okay? You just hand wave it away all the time, or you're just completely oblivious to that. I hate these guys because most of what they argue is literally just like, I know that there's probably a shit ton of footage on this and a shit ton of reading to be done. I just don't want to do it, so I'm just going to act like it doesn't exist. I take everyone at their word when they say free Palestine from the river to the sea. They mean a secular democracy with equal rights for all and not kill all the Jews. But how can you accomplish that? That's not what Hamas is asking for or how they run Gaza. It doesn't even matter what Hamas is asking for. Okay? If you had looked at one fucking exit poll, just one, if you looked at anything, IRA is nothing like Hamas. Brother, both the IRA and the ANC are nothing like Hamas and very similar in different ways, okay? The fundamentals are still there. Hamas's desires are completely irrelevant to this conversation, okay? Hamas has simply become the expression of emancipation, and that was by design, okay? That was by design. It was the machinations of the Israeli state that deliberately tampered and suppressed and effectively neutered the Palestinian Authority that was secular and that was active in the West Bank and had literally fucking fought Hamas personally. If you genuinely cared as the Israeli state, the power player in the region, in legitimizing a two-state solution, you would have worked with them and shown the Palestinian people, at least 2.2 million of them living in the fucking West Bank, that you're not taking up all of their land. But you didn't do that. And ultimately, while ideologically not aligned, the IRA and the ANC and leaders within the IRA and leaders within the ANC personally understand Palestinian emancipation to be a just cause. So what the fuck are you in Connecticut sitting around and saying about Palestinians and what they should do and what they shouldn't do? Now, here's the thing. There is a way to squash the influence that Hamas has. But one thing I want to point here is that even during the exit polling that was conducted in the aftermath of the election where Hamas won, okay, the people still overwhelmingly were voting in favor of a two-state solution and a ceasefire. So what the fuck is this dumbass saying? Shut up. I am Jewish, but I'm not particularly invested in Zionism as an idea. I personally enjoy living in a secular democracy. It's a fine idea. But then there's Hamas entrenched in Gaza, where the only way to fight them causes massive collateral damage, and the answer is question mark. A lot of Jewish people I know are taking this sloppy thinking personally and feel it reveals an anti-Semitic core to the hard left. But I'm generalist, so I know this kind of low-quality thinking they bring to every issue, and it's not about me. Oh, my God. He's so brilliant. He's above just saying the left is anti-Semitic. He believes that the left is simply stupid. I love that. Thank you. God, you are so fucking annoying. I hate the contempt I have for neoliberals is unimaginable. It's just like liberals like Matty Iglesias who just sit there and can sit on top of like pre-established hegemonic oppressive structures and just go and point to it and be like, oh, you fucking idiots. You don't know anything. Bitch, you didn't do the work. You're not Margaret Thatcher. You're not Ronald Reagan. You didn't set up the fucking capitalist infrastructure. You're just benefiting from it and pointing to it and going, look how normal and smart I am because everything is designed in a way that I am saying is good. You could just point to like everything that's going on and go, these guys have no way of creating a new society. After all, every single time that people have tried to change their own realities, they've been violently squashed, violently crushed by American capitalist domination, both economically and also through direct interference in their political affairs, from coup d'etats and fascist paramilitary violence to literal fascist dictatorships being planted in places where they just wanted to have a semblance, a crumb of autonomy. So, oh man, it's so crazy. It just never works. It just never works. You know what works? America. Meanwhile, America, look to America. Is that a fucking success? Are you out of your mind? If we're looking at the material realities of the fucking USSR and what America has accomplished with its lack of interference, okay, in all of its collectivization efforts, sitting on top of the bounties of 400 plus years of chattel slavery, okay, America and where it's at is nothing in comparison to any kind of like failed socialist formation of historic socialism, from going from potato farmers in an agrarian society in Tsarist Russia to one that became an industrial powerhouse that fucking defeated the United States in the space race originally. That's fucking ridiculous. You look at what historic socialist developments have done, and there's plenty of wrong in all of them, okay? Like, I'm not going to sit here and defend the great leap forward, okay? But if you look at what socialist countries have been able to do, or at least when they have a little bit of if they have a little bit of fucking perspective, a little bit of like interest in developing a better future for their own citizens, it's ridiculous to look at like China, for example, right now. If you look at China right now, you don't see that. You don't see the difference between like India and China. Okay, victims of colonial violence. Look at where they're at. Look at where the fuck they're at. It's right there. Just look. Look to India and then look to China. I know neoliberals love saying India is a powerhouse, but as far as even development goes, China fucking laps India. Get the fuck out of here. India just has a lot of people, yeah, as opposed to China, which is known to be a small, tiny, minuscule nation. What do you mean by colonial violence? Imperialism, being a colony. What the fuck are we talking about? Look at India's even development and India's development in comparison to China's development. Now this is, for the record, this is not I'm not shitting on India at all, okay? I'm not shitting on India at all. It's just that it's not like Indian people are lesser than Chinese people or anything like that, okay? It's just governance. Obviously, obviously, India versus China is also is different. There are very different issues, okay? Please don't clip that and send it to like your Indian friends. They're gonna assassinate me, okay? Like like they killed that fucking one dude in Canada. Jesus Christ. My point is, when you have central planning that has a vested interest in uplifting as many people as possible, okay, you see the results of that. You see the fucking results of that. The results are so clear. It's not like China got a fucking Marshall Plan. You know what I mean? They had to literally work their own goddamn fucking labor force to the fucking bone. But look at what they did with the profits. Look at what they did with the profits. Look at the even development that occurred. It's unimaginable. How do other so-called leftists hear you say this shit like this and take it as a bad thing? Because they are pro-America at the heart. In their hearts, they are pro-America. They do not care about the advancement of society. They do not care about absolute Habibi Hassan. You ever thought about visiting India for an unrelated nice vacation? Fuck no. I mean, maybe, but the thing is, it's understandable that you're like kind of afraid. You're like, these guys, they're scary. I've been scared of them. They don't look like me. They don't have the same culture as me. They have like this robust culture for thousands of years. I don't really understand it. I don't understand the language. Why are they fucking blowing up a little bit right now? I don't like that. It threatens, as contradictions heighten, okay, in America and in the Western world due to decades of neoliberalism eroding your quality of life, your comparative quality of life, because obviously technological improvements still make it feel like your quality of life is better than it was prior, okay? You look to other countries that are in their 90s era doing their 90s shit, explosive growth, and you kind of get a little jealous and maybe you get a little scared. I think that's where it comes from. And then you have to like you have to basically try and justify why this country is bad. They're a threat, and here's why they're actually bad. Oftentimes you point to shit that we do on a regular fucking basis that they do sometimes lighter, sometimes worse versions of, and go, but you're not fucking complaining about that, you know? Yeah, Western chauvinism is very, very difficult to beat. And I think a lot of people, if I'm going to be as charitable as possible to those who are like, America's foreign adversaries are always the bad guys in the history, and America is the bad guy as well, but they're at least like, you know, trying their best. If I'm going to be as charitable as possible to that position, I think that they find it to be, it's like better to, the evil that I know is better than the evil that I don't know, right? Where they're like, I would rather have America be the monolithic power. I would rather have America be the, hegemonic power than China, because I'm scared. I don't want multipolarity because that will create more conflict. A lot of those people also, I don't think, understand history. Anyone that says that the lack of conflict, the lack of multipolarity was good for the Western world doesn't understand that like neoliberalism was met with zero opposition post the dissolution of the USSR. When you don't have any kind of counterbalance, you have nowhere that these other countries can go to at least leverage their existence, to at least leverage and hedge their bets against another superpower that they can at least take back to the United States of America and Western imperialist forces like the World Bank or the IMF to get favorable, better deals on. Anyway, I think that ultimately, I think Çin'in surveillance state'li insanları korkutuyor. Amerika bilindik geldiğinde onunla devam etmeyi tercih ediyorlar. Yeah, except, so this Turkish guy says, multipolarity aside, China's surveillance state scares people. Bitch, what do you think America does? It's just white supremacy at that point. We, in the imperial core, even if we are not directly a part of the machine itself, are comfortable with white men, specifically Angloids, specifically WASPs in America dominating our lives and implementing a surveillance state. The only difference between the Chinese surveillance state and the American one is that the American one is more invisible. That's the difference between neoliberalism and its own mechanisms of control versus the Chinese one, which is more authoritarian, more in your face. You're very aware of it. One is more honest about its control. The other is not. And I personally prefer the neoliberal mechanism of control. I've talked about this before. I think that there is a necessity to sedate the masses, and the best way to do that is by innocuous, or more so just consumption. Just consumption is the best way to stop people from rising up. Gotta have the fake choice. Anyway, at the end of the day, this is what drives me to say America bad, okay? I absolutely fucking hate the massive amounts of copium that a lot of these guys take because they're too fucking cowardly to say with their chest that America is good, okay? They believe in their heart of hearts that America is better than all of these other countries and therefore destined to be the dominant force on the planet, or rather they're afraid of what another dominant force on the planet would look like. They're too young, so they haven't seen what that looks like. Or if they were old enough, they hate what that looked like in general. Okay? They're afraid. So, but they can't say America good. It's actually fucking awesome that we just like rip dicks everywhere we go and have 800 military bases. So they find a different way to be like, you know what? Your analysis is reductive. You're just saying America bad. That's the end all be all. You're a campus. Like they try to find new fucking old terminology that is rehashed so they can fucking use like different versions of light McCarthyist sentiment. You know? To just be like, oh, dude, your fucking analysis is just so stupid. You just say America bad. Well, I lay it out. I lay out why America is bad. Okay? And the reality is that even if you are a social fucking Democrat in Europe, China doing the same shit that you were able to do even before World War II, but also certainly after World War II, is not a bad thing. Them ripping fucking 800 million people out of extreme poverty is a good thing, okay? And they didn't do that because foreign capital came in and was like, here you go, take some money, we love you. They did that by working for it, and more importantly, taking the fucking money and reinvesting it into their own infrastructure, into even development. It's fucking ridiculous. It's like, oh man, a little bit of nationalism, okay, paired up with a tremendous amount of social democracy and social democratic provisions is bad, actually, when the guys doing it don't look like me. It's okay in fucking Norway. It's okay in France. It's okay in all these other countries, which, by the way, also rely heavily on the, maintaining their colonies, especially France. Holy shit. Okay? But it's not okay when China does it. I don't like it when China does it. Anyway, how is what China did for its own people functionally different than what American investment did to Japan and South Korea from purely lifting out of poverty? I mean, one was a shit ton of money and infrastructural support. The other was literally offering conditions on wage slavery to Western corporations so that it would become a manufacturing hub that would also, take their IP. I don't cover breaking news. What do you mean? What's going on that you're saying I don't cover breaking news? Japan used to be the third biggest economy in the world and one of America's biggest regional and economical partners. Lamau, they didn't do it to lift people out of poverty. Yeah, And also, Japan was also an industrial powerhouse even before World War II and a colonizing power in the region as well. I think a better example would be the South Korean development, which was, there was a r/all thread about losers saying you don't cover them, but do with this conflict. Oh. I think, isn't a partial reason to China's surveillance state to stop Western capitalist influence? I think that's cope. Do the Chinese people feel oppressed by their own government? Simple question, chatters. That's a great fucking question. Ask that to anyone in the Western world and they will say, of course they are. If you look at any fucking study from the Western world, even fucking think tanks that have no interest in like making China look good, they all come to that same fucking conclusion. It's like odd though, because no Westerner, it seems, ever encounters a Chinese person, like a Chinese national. There's a lot of them around. You can literally ask them personally how that shit works. The major difference between Chinese development, okay? The major difference between Chinese development is that it was a product of central planning, and it had a real focus on even development. So they didn't just take the profits and accumulate it and secure contracts with like Western developers and basically funnel that money back in to the Western world. It also came at a perfect time, I think, too. Westerners have no base for understanding how Chinese people relate to and feel about their government because it is too far from a specific form of liberal democracy for most to understand. Yes. Hasan, just because they don't say they're oppressed doesn't mean they aren't oppressed. That's how indoctrination works. That's why Americans don't recognize how they're oppressed. Americans don't recognize how they're oppressed. Brother, if you ask American confidence in their government, it's at 30%. If you ask the Chinese, it's like fucking 75. What do you mean? I guess they're just like way more brainwashed than Americans are. Is that what you're saying? I lied. It's actually higher than 75. I just didn't want to say it because I feel like if I say it, people are going to say I'm dick riding China too much. 1 billion people, they all got indoctrinated. Yeah, they are more brainwashed. Their media is entirely state controlled. Brother, you are a crazy person. Okay? Our media is entirely state controlled. Literally, look at any Western media. We've been analyzing the conflict, the ethnic cleansing campaign that Israel's conducting in Gaza for the past week, okay? And you have seen how our State Department aligned media operates, how it moves, okay? There are still, of course, more libertarian principles here in the United States of America as it pertains to freedom of speech in comparison to China. I will always admit that. It's something that I'm incredibly critical of as well as it pertains to the Chinese state. But the notion that like these citizens are completely fucking brainwashed, and that's why they think that that's why they're happy with their government. Okay, the reason why people are happy with their government, not because of like the obvious development that they have fucking seen in their lives, is so silly. Like 700 to 800,000 people, or 800 million people, not 1,000. Lifted out of extreme poverty in a lifetime. They experienced that, and you're over here being like, oh, it's because they're fucking oppressed. No, motherfucker, they literally look at a city that was a ghost city 10 years ago that American media was laughing at, and they see a vibrant city with 14 million people living in it, and they go, that's crazy that happened in the last 5 years, dog. If that shit happened in fucking Pittsburgh, if you looked at all of these former industrial hubs in the United States of America, if they had even a fraction of that same kind of revitalization, even though America is going in the exact opposite direction, we have ghost cities as well. China ghost cities, they built them, now they're populating them. America, we have ghost cities, we built them, and 100 years ago, and we've just destroyed them. We've just left them behind, okay? But if you had that level of development happening anywhere in America, you would have the same level of confidence in your government too. You can't do this about China in the same way that you can do for DPRK. They use centralized economic planning and influence global markets. They grew wealth and resulted in support from the population. It's not really surprising when shit like this exists all over the country. The funny thing is, maybe 20 years ago, you could kind of say whatever the fuck you want about China, and many people did, like almost like the DPRK, right? You could say that, and the level of like back and forth and access to information wasn't as readily available as it is now. So many people did say insane shit about China, but now you kind of can't because it's much more obvious as to what's going on. Do you get it? Do you understand? So that's the major difference. Like, you can still say whatever the fuck you want about the DPRK. Most people believe it because there's not a lot of information coming out of the Hermit Kingdom, right? Anyway, point is, they are still spreading a collapsed apartment from 2009 as if all development in China is like that. Meanwhile, China has 80% of the world's solar panel production, 70% of the lithium battery production, and 60% of the EVs, while building 20,000 miles of high-speed rail. 95% of Chinese people own their own home. It's hard not to reckon with this reality. This does not mean that they're always good. This doesn't mean that they don't have an oppressive state surveillance structure. I do agree to that. I don't like it. Yeah, authoritarian nations are really efficient. That's what happens when you oppress your workers. Trains run on time. Come on, brother. That's just copium. We oppress our workers, dummy. And our trains don't even run on time. What the fuck are you saying? Like, that's lethal levels of copium. This is self-destructive copium. The real answer here is to look to what they're doing, get upset, and then get your fucking government to also do the same thing. Organize locally. Organize in your fucking workplace. Build a coalition of workers, workers' councils. You know what I mean? We don't even fucking have trains. Come on. America is also bad. I just really don't like authoritarianism. I think it's worse than America. Yeah, that's because the profits go to the owners in America, where they go to the state in China. Exactly. Exactly my point. Thank you. In America, the government controls nothing. Okay? The government controls nothing. Corporations control the government. In China, the government controls the corporations. Now, that could be bad. They could also turn around and just decide, no, actually, I just want to make sure that, dear leader Xi turns around and fucking has like 1 million yachts instead. I don't know. And engage in and there are billionaires in China too, obviously. But those billionaires are still living on borrowed money. Bro, I see one crack in the road. China is clearly failing. I mean, who knows what'll happen to China 20, 30, 40 years down the line. Don't misunderstand me. Okay? But as they are in this stage of their development, they've done a pretty good job, and there's still a lot of ways to go. Okay, a lot of people say China is failing, which I always find to be funny, because they say China is failing, and it's gonna fucking crumble any day now. But I think the scarier part of Chinese existence, okay, the scarier part of Chinese existence is like what the lessons Western capitalist nations will take from China. They cannot fight against an industrial powerhouse with centralized planning. They can't do that. They consider that to be market manipulation, as a matter of fact. They can't. Like, no matter how much you pump subsidies into a specific sector, you can't compete with centralized planning, especially if China decides to Amazon you out of a fucking global market. Okay? They go, oh, that's market manipulation. They're doing market manipulation. Their subsidies are ridiculous. So my fear is that the Western world look to this and think maybe we also need more stringent control, but centralized planning, not for the interest of the many, but more so the interest of the few. Still continuing on with our capitalist organization of the economy. I love when you share the baby formula example, like how many U.S. billionaires have destroyed or liquefied people with no repercussions, whatever. Exactly. So some of the issues that China currently has, I think, are that they've developed too much. So the price of labor in China has gone up. They've developed too much too fast. So now they also do the same shit, outsourcing their own manufacturing capabilities. So there's that. That's one aspect of it. China also has developed far too fast and need other countries to also develop at an even pace so that they have a larger market to sell to. I think this is one of the aspects of the One Belt, One Road initiative. They need Africa to develop faster so that they can have a new market that they can sell to. A new market that they can also buy from, or a new market that they can extract natural resources from, and so that they can also sell to. Anyway, see, they have car line infrastructure. Don't worry, Amerifats, you can have your car. Anyway, Hasan just dropped in to say thank you for mentioning that study that attempted to show why some Israelis strive for peace and others are intolerant of the Palestinians. Pretty sure it was you, and found it because of some experiencing charitable gestures during the Holocaust, causing generational snowballing of tolerance and positive outlook on Palestinian people. Really fucking food for thought. Been digesting that since. Very enlightening. The closest we're getting to Chinese urban development is Night City. How has China managed to keep corruption in check? Specifically, all the money goes to the states, something India failed at. I think they have a very, from what I understand, they have a very interesting electoral model where it's like performance based. So they have like a very weird, model of engaging in elections where, like, obviously they're a part of the, they're a part of the same party, but like they also, for the record, of course, China also has corruption. And it was probably even a lot worse 20 years ago, I would say. Citizens elect the National Assembly, and then they elect reps, and those reps elect reps, and so on. So the thing that I understand, the way that elections or the way that the performance-based elections work is that, for example, let's say there's a fucking pothole, okay? They want the pothole to be fixed. If that pothole is not fixed immediately, then the citizens remember that next time around, next time there's an election, and vote on the performance of like the efficiency of their local representative in fixing whatever issues they see. Then there's also the other part of corruption. There was a lot more corruption in the past. My cousin just came back from China, says traffic is so much better now because of the surveillance state. You break into traffic rules and cops are knocking on your windows like 5 minutes later asking for an explanation. That's insane. Korean is Australian, so take what he's saying with a grain of salt, okay? He's a little bitter that it's a Chinese colony now. Just saying. He lives in the Chinese colony of Australia. It's a vassal state. Hate to inform you, but shortly after this video was released on YouTube, the entire city crumbled due to the tofu dredge construction. It was a national travesty. You probably haven't heard about it because the Chinese government is trying to cover it up. I heard that. Yeah, I heard my favorite think tank was looking at the amount of jars that the Chinese government purchased. Very suspicious. They probably purchased all those jars because they were cremating everybody and putting them in the jars. All their ashes. That's how we know. China's aging population combined with declining birth rate despite relaxed one-child policy regulations may indicate potential future labor shortages and economic slowdowns. I don't know. All I'm saying is centralized planning has its downsides, because if you fuck up, if you make the wrong decision, you can actually have ginormous issues. But it also has its upsides in the sense that if you are focused on ensuring development, if you're focused on ensuring that even development exists, and if you're focused on Chinese prosperity is the term that they use, then it's truly very beneficial. The Cato Institute said my basement is actually Chinese police station. Now I don't know what to do. I wore your merch to Field of Screams and no one complimented it. You fell off. Sag. Damn. I don't know how you immigrate to China. This is misleading. The vast majority of their prosperity comes from how they turn rural villages into mid-sized cities. The democratic state is completely necessary to deal with big societal issues, something that becomes very clear when you see our neoliberal government is absolutely incapable of doing anything these days. Yeah, you know who's in China right now? It's good that we're fucking glazing it. My king, Governor Gruesome Gavin Newsom. That's right. U.S. airstrike on Iranian proxies. Wait, what? Certain subreddits called you a tanky, and now I know why. Yeah. But once again, I want you to understand something. This doesn't mean that China is perfect, okay? I'm not saying that at all. They are I mean, if China was perfect, I'd live there. Straight up. I have the capacity at this point to live wherever the fuck I want on the planet. I love America. I want to stay here. U.S. military carried out airstrikes on Iranian proxy forces in Syria moments ago in response to recent attacks on U.S. bases since October 17th. Sources tell Fox News. Oh, my God.
Bomb them. Bomb them. Keep bombing them. Bomb them again and again. My resolution?
I don't think these people understand what that means for them. Like, don't get it. What's Hasan's view on the son of Hamas founder talking on the Pierce show? Did I miss it? No, I don't give a shit what the fucking... I barely give a shit about what the Hamas founder has to say. let alone his son. I don't give a shit. Let me guess. He's saying that Hamas is evil and Israel is good. Is that what he's saying? He said Hamas is evil. My dad is the villain. He's the one who's oppressing all the Palestinians, and he's the one who's actually put Gaza under a blockade, and not Israel. Oh boy. The United States conducted self-defense airstrikes on 2 facilities in eastern Syria that are being used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and affiliated groups. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III statement on U.S. military strikes in eastern Syria. Wait. Wait, no. These precision self-defense strikes are a response to a series of ongoing and mostly unsuccessful attacks against U.S. personnel in Iraq and Syria by Iranian-backed militia groups that began on October 17th. Hold on. As a result of these attacks, one U.S. citizen contractor died from a cardiac incident while sheltering in place. No! Bro, don't write that. That's so embarrassing. Why did you put that in the statement, dog? No. Bro, you literally did not have to say that. Just lie and be like he bravely and valiantly fought back against the IRGC and died in the process or something. Oh, no, dude. Dude, no. You can't. Oh, no. Like, why did they... In that situation, it's 100% better to lie. The American military has literally lied, okay? They lie all the fucking time. They lied about Pat Tillman for worse reasons, for obviously bad reasons. They could have at least lied about this guy for good reason and made it seem like he died heroically in a valiant effort. Not because not because he died of a heart attack. Come on. Just say the strikes killed him. Like literally, say the strikes killed him. It's probably nothing major. They've conducted countless similar strikes on Iranian Shia militias in that area in years gone by after rockets and drone attacks. I guess the only major difference now is that we have 2 aircraft carriers in the region, no? And the Royal Navy, the British Royal Navy. And also, tensions are a bit high. Hamas co-founder's son is actually speaking negatively on them. Yeah, I know. I already called it. You misheard me, I think. I was making fun of that. Anyway, fucked up that they just straight up butchered our boy right here, and they said he suffered from a cardiac incident while sheltering in place. Like they didn't mix words. They straight up were like, yeah, this guy fucking died while he was like sitting in a bomb shelter because his blood pressure was too high. That's fucked up. Lie, please. Anyway, while sheltering in place, 21 U.S. personnel suffer from minor injuries, but all have since returned to duty. The president has no higher priority than the safety of the U.S. personnel. He directed today's actions to make clear the United States will not tolerate such attacks. The United States does not seek conflict and has no intention nor desire to engage in further hostilities. I cap. But these Iranian-backed attacks against U.S. forces are unacceptable and must stop. Iran wants to hide its hand and deny its role in these attacks against our forces. We will not let them. If attacks by Iran's proxies against the U.S. forces continue, we will not hesitate to take further necessary measures to protect our people. What are they going to do? Fucking make sure that they can't get medicine vials harder? Like, what more escalation can occur? I guess it's just like the main attacks on U.S. forces will likely come when the Israeli ground offensive starts. That's why the U.S. air defenses are being flooded to the region. Yeah. Oh, God, this is so bad. It's like, because Israel has to do a fucking ethnic cleansing. They have to do ethnic cleansing. So now we have to do World War III. Fucking sick. I mean, you got to put that $1 trillion to use. You know what I mean? You can't just have it sit there. The United States does not seek conflict and has no intention. These narrowly tailored strikes in self-defense were intended solely to protect and defend U.S. personnel in Iraq and Syria. They are separate and distinct from the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, and do not constitute a shift in our approach to the Israel-Hamas conflict. We continue to urge all state and non-state entities not to take action that would escalate into a broader regional conflict. I think China might get involved if U.S. starts a war with Iran. Bro, whose side do you think China would get involved in? Yeah, China would get into the war and defend Israel, okay? Like, a lot of the people don't understand the relationship that China has with Israel, okay? Anyway, yes, defend Israel. You heard me. People think like China is this ideologically consistent, socialist safe haven or some shit, and not simply a superpower that just wants to cut in and take as much market share of power as possible. These strikes are absolutely not completely separate and distinct from the conflict in Gaza. The Iranian proxies are attacking as a part of the Al-Aqsa flood. I mean, I think it's, I think that overall, I think that they are, I don't know, maybe they would have done, something beforehand. And the fact that they haven't thus far implies that they are worried. From Elant, still pretty early, but another thing that happened earlier. The United States conducted self-defense airstrikes. Wait, we're literally looking at that. What are you talking about? That's what we're looking at right now. That's the tweet in question. Here's the thing. Russia, Turkey are talking a big game against Israel, but they're doing it because they're regional power players and they see the writing on the wall. They have a long history and relationship with Israel themselves. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. Near the Israeli port of Eilat, concerning given recent attempts by the Houthis to launch nearly likely Quds 4 land attack cruise missiles and Shahed 136 Samad 4 explosive one-way drones. Missile hits building in Egypt's Taba near the border with Israel, injuring at least 5 people. Chinese media has been pushing a very anti-Israel sentiment. Anyone that defends Palestinians in that region is usually doing it specifically because they want to undermine Israel and America's interest in the region and America's influence in the region. That's it. Or they're doing it because they recognize that America's influence is waning in comparison to what it once was, maybe 20 years ago, and that's it. They still maintain a trade relationship with Israel. All of these countries do. Anyway, I'm really fucking tired. I'm going to run the last 3-minute ad break here, and I am going to hope that World War III does not start while we're... Yeah, sorry to the gaming Andes. I apologize that I couldn't muster up the power. I used my gaming gaming allocation to glaze China today. So hot. Anyway, yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully World War III will not have been broken out. All right? Peace. Be kind to one another. Love you.
So people hate sunny Los Angeles, California, says Hasan. The starlock to the starlock to the topic just begun. There he is again. Hasan is streaming. Hasan is streaming. There he is again. Hasan is streaming. Hasan is streaming. Reviewing the P.O. box. Uncle Uger's face. Sat in Discord at your prop. Great names take on break. Tiny Bernie Sanders, LGBTQ Air Force. Whole left at your fingertips, Ane at your door. H3 crowded debate, the Young Turks online show. 3 full fucking years of this, plenty more to go. 90-day fiance talks of champagne bourgeoisie. A Trump rally live reaction on mass riot at DC.